A grand castle stood imposingly amidst a torrential downpour of rain and lightning. In the dark of night, Ophelia, cloaked in black, hurried through the rain-soaked forest. Her legs were scratched from running so fast. Ophelia's breath came in ragged gasps from exhaustion. Just then, a flicker of hope sparked within her as she saw something. I see it. This is definitely what he has. I can do this. Clutching the white box tightly in her hand, she reassured herself. With just this, I will succeed. I will be able to kill her. High above, shrouded in darkness, Sylvester gazed down at the forest. He pressed his lips together, standing silently in the shadows, and uttered a name, Ophelia. Sunlight streamed through the windows one morning. Two lines of servants stood in parallel, bowing their heads to the young woman. She stood before the large doors, flung them open, and called out. Sylvester, the man, working with his subordinates, spoke coldly. Couldn't even bother to knock, could you? No manners at all. He rested his chin on his hand, his whole being like a noble, cold, dark rose. He asked, "What is it, Ophelia?" She stood seriously before him and spoke. "I have something to discuss with you. I want a divorce, Sylvester." As if anticipating her words, he tapped his fingers on the table and coldly ordered, "Get out," cutting her off mid-sentence. Before Ophelia could finish, Sylvester interrupted her. Slightly angered, she raised her voice. "No, that's not fair. You have to let me finish." Looking into Sylvester's cold eyes, she felt a flicker of fear. "He's so scary," Ophelia screamed internally. She stepped back and replied softly, "Fine, I'll leave." Reaching the door, she turned back to face Sylvester's intense gaze and hesitantly asked, "So, can we get divorced tomorrow?" Sylvester's face darkened as he stared directly at Ophelia, sending a chill down her spine. She inwardly groaned and left the room, closing the door firmly behind her. Leaning against the door, she sighed. That was exhausting. "I'm Ophelia," she said, placing a hand on her forehead. It took him several rejections to finally get the hint. Just getting a divorce is so tiring. The Countess's remarriage method. Just the title tells you the whole story. But I like it that way. The heroine of this novel is a countess. The story begins one day when she finds a man lying injured on her land. She nursed the frail man back to health. Or rather, the male lead was quite enthusiastic. But who would have guessed? That man turned out to be the long-lost crown prince. And after reclaiming his position as crown prince, he came to propose to the countess, even though she was still married. For me, someone battling loneliness in a hospital due to a weak body, this novel is a dose of medicine for my soul, helping me overcome the monotony of hospital food. And the character who helped me release dopamine is Ophelia MacGuffin. She is the only daughter of one of the two Grand Dukes in the Empire. Her beauty is renowned, even in other empires, but her personality is like a drill through the Earth's core. She is the villain of the novel. Ophelia first gained notoriety for slapping a peer at her debutante ball, but that was just a prime example. From then on, Ophelia continuously assaulted people or caused accidents. Exasperated, the Grand Duke quickly married her off, and her intended was Duke Raisin, the ruler of the North. But Ophelia wasn't pleased about it, because Sylvester Raisin was half demon, half human. The only man who accepted the wicked, half-demon Ophelia. For Duke Raisin, the Grand Duke's power was very appealing. So, the wedding took place despite Ophelia's objections. It was an incredibly tedious ceremony, devoid of any blessings or excitement. Immediately after the marriage, the Grand Duke's massive debt was revealed. The cause was Ophelia's father, Grand Duke Mark Ruffin's gambling addiction. Fortunately for Ophelia, she had dismissed them after the wedding and could escape the debt. But Grand Duke Mark Ruffin ended his own life. After growing weary of the constant debt collection, Ophelia began dabbling in black magic. She turned her back on everything and spent several years in a daze. One day, Ophelia was suddenly pulled back to reality. After 16 years, the crown prince finally appeared at a social gathering, and Ophelia fell in love at first sight. She remembered the crown prince smiling and looking at her tenderly, and what would happen afterward. Ophelia's love was a mad obsession, and of course, her target was the female lead. She resorted to violent kidnapping and imprisonment, and a series of other wicked deeds, too numerous to mention. Even though the crown prince was angry, he couldn't do anything, because if he tried to get rid of Ophelia and expose her actions, Duke Raisin would quickly handle it. Sylvester Raisin was the most powerful man in the empire. He constantly opposed and obstructed the crown prince. The crown prince was fed up with the arrogant couple, so he decided to become ruthless. In the novel, there's a scene where the crown prince confesses his feelings to Ophelia. He grabs her shoulders and shouts, Do you really love me? Then prove it. Kill your husband. Kill Sylvester Raisin. Ophelia didn't even hesitate. She used black magic to control Sylvester's magic, and then Sylvester died painfully. Just to prove her love, Ophelia was hanged. The vortex of fate bound 4 people, but only 2 found happiness under the title of main characters. The other 2 faced an ending befitting the title of villains. Reading up to this point, she slammed the novel shut, commenting, "What a terrible ending." One day, as I drifted off to sleep, filled with thoughts of that awful ending, I opened my eyes to find myself transported into the novel. Lying in the pouring rain, drenched to the bone, was Ophelia Raisin. She opened her eyes wide, stunned, lying in the rain, fearfully muttering, "This is bad." The next day, birds flew with fluttering wings under the golden sun, gently landing on the castle tower. Branches rustled and swayed in the wind. Sunlight streamed into Ophelia's room. She stood before a large mirror, gazing at her reflection. Ophelia was stunned by her current beauty. No matter how panicked she felt, Ophelia remained beautiful. How many days had passed since that day? She had endured so many hardships, along with the heavy rain, just to return to the mansion. That night, Ophelia, drenched and exhausted, stepped through the door. Her maid, Irene, rushed to support her, exclaiming, "Goodness, madam." Once she calmed down, she had to figure out which part of the novel this was. It's fortunate this is before Ophelia killed. Sinister, though. This is after Ophelia fell in love with the crown prince at first sight. In other words, this is when Ophelia was frantically bullying the female lead, Fleur. Of course, Ophelia didn't just publicly insult her at social gatherings. She also caused Fleur's husband's business to go bankrupt. She even tried to sell Fleur to a slave trader. Remembering this, she shuddered and hugged herself tightly. But thankfully, that didn't happen. Naturally, Ophelia was terrifying from the very beginning. But why did she become so cruel as to ruin someone's entire life? Thinking back, perhaps she started to go mad after that incident, amidst the shattering of peace. Ophelia screamed at her father. Even if he is the ruler of the North, he's still only half demon. Are you telling me to marry a demon? Grand Duke Mark Griffin smiled at his daughter. I don't know why you hate him so much. A villainess and a demon. Doesn't that sound like a perfect match? That was the last conversation between Ophelia and her father. After hearing the news of her father's death, Ophelia lived in seclusion for a long time. But one day, she suddenly appeared in the basement of Duke Raisin's mansion. A long, echoing scream reverberated throughout the castle. Sylvester and the servants rushed to the source of the scream. He shouted, "What's all this commotion?" His eyes widened in disbelief at the scene before him. Ophelia gave a dark chuckle. "Oh, everyone's gathered? Let's have some fun." Before Sylvester stood a crazed Ophelia, seemingly devoid of her soul, in disheveled black clothes. Her frightening appearance was amplified by something she held in her hand, muttering, "Father, father, I'm bringing you back." Ophelia was attempting to summon her father's spirit using forbidden, incredibly dangerous in-class magic. Seeing this, Sylvester was enraged and decided to lock Ophelia away. The dark mass Ophelia summoned was incinerated. She was confined in a lightless dungeon. Despite her deranged mind, did the affection she felt for her parents truly exist? Ophelia stared at her hands, lost in thought. Black magic. Looking at her palms, she wondered, "Can I use black magic?" Ophelia waved her hands around experimentally. And oh, not yet. She paced around the room, thinking, well, I'll figure that out later. Ophelia walked to the window, basking in the warm sunlight. She gazed at the sky and the town in the distance. But no matter the current situation, the most important thing is that I've become Ophelia, a healthy Ophelia. Since birth, I've been sick and wondering when I would die. For me, someone who's lived on the border between life and death my whole life, I feel incredibly lucky to possess this body. I want to enjoy life with a healthy body, so I need to stay away from the male lead and the villainous husband who hates me. A look of determination flashed in her eyes that I absolutely must go with him. In a hallway, Irene stood, facing Ophelia. Ophelia bowed respectfully and said, "I sincerely apologize, madam, but the Duke is currently out." Irene coldly narrowed her eyes and asked, "Is that so?" The maid flinched, fearfully cowering and raising her hands to protect her head, anticipating a blow. But there was no strike. Slightly surprised by the lack of violence, Ophelia turned and walked away, leaving behind the words, "There's no other way, huh? I have other business to attend to, so I'll be going now." She thought to herself, so I won't be able to see him today. Ophelia was a little puzzled. What was wrong with Sylvester? Sylvester's acceptance of this marriage was to join forces with the Grand Duke and control the Crown Prince. But the Grand Duke's family had already collapsed, so why wouldn't he agree to a divorce? Could it be because I haven't caused any trouble lately, so he has developed some pity? No, absolutely not. Ophelia walked on, lost in thought that if he doesn't want a divorce, then I have to make him want one. So I'll act as much like the original Ophelia as possible. I'll act like the most vicious person in the world to make Sylvester completely lose his composure. I'll make him cling to me and beg for a divorce. Let's start with today's first agenda item. Ophelia entered a room. Iron, standing behind her, cried out in astonishment, "Oh my goodness!" These people, looking at the people before her, the maid exclaimed, "They're famous designers, representatives from the most popular fashion houses in the empire." Iron realized she had spoken out of turn and covered her mouth. Inside, Ophelia laughed triumphantly. "Haha, surprised, aren't you?" Calling the designers directly, not their staff like Lady Iona, Lady Anne, and Miss Zaidu. Even calling just one of the three isn't easy. So calling all three makes it even more extravagant. Ophelia looked at the three people before her with a slight frown. Why are they already trembling? All three designers fearfully bowed and greeted her. It's an honor to be invited by the Duchess. Seeing this, Ophelia thought, I haven't even done anything yet. Usually, I'd be hitting people instead of being greeted. She sat down and asked, "Did you bring the catalogs?" A maid stepped forward and presented one to Ophelia. "Yes, here you are, Duchess." The other two designers' catalogs were also placed before her. They said in unison, "I've brought this season's catalog as requested. First step of the divorce plan." Ophelia covered her mouth and giggled. "Oh, I even need to look." The designers were taken aback by her words. She smiled confidently and uttered three words, "I'll buy everything." Ophelia inwardly marveled at her own extravagance. After a moment of looking over the outfits presented by the shop owners, Ophelia declared, "I'll buy everything." The shop owners, who were waiting anxiously, were shocked by her answer. Iron couldn't believe her ears. "Oh my goodness." Ophelia was muttering to herself. One catalog has at least 10 outfits. Plus, it includes the price of jewelry, too. Even Ophelia was shaking her head at this level of extravagance. While she was reveling in her thoughts, Iron anxiously asked, "Are you sure this is all right, madam?" Ophelia feigned annoyance and asked, What are you dissatisfied with?" Seeing her master's displeasure, Iron confessed, "It's just that it's so unlike you." Hearing this, Ophelia was stunned. "What do you mean?" Iron recounted how in the past, after buying everything without even looking, if you weren't satisfied, you would buy the entire next season's collection as well. Ophelia couldn't believe it. Then, Iron seemed to understand something and smiled brightly at Ophelia. "If you want to end this quickly, just let me know." Ophelia reluctantly replied, "All right, let's stop here for today." But inwardly, she was still reeling from the shock. "Ophelia, it seems my imagination about you is far too limited." Thus, Ophelia's plan of extravagant spending to provoke a divorce had failed. Ophelia was now walking absent-mindedly down the hallway. Sighing, she thought, I really don't want to resort to Plan B. She knew that Sylvester valued those under his command so much that he could remember the names of over 100 servants. It was because of this that she had devised a Plan B. So, Plan B was to bully the servants. At that moment, she noticed a young maid cleaning the hallway and slowly approached her. This has to end sometime. The young maid, startled by Ophelia's call, stammered, "Why, yes, madam." Ophelia inspected the dust cloth in the maid's hand and said gloomily, "Do you not see the dust here?" The maid trembled and apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying close attention." Ophelia narrowed her eyes, not paying attention. Then she noticed the dirty bucket of water beside the maid. She didn't want to do this, but for the sake of her plan, she could only think to herself, "I'm sorry, extra whose name I don't know." Then, she kicked over the bucket and snapped, "Clean it up." She crossed her arms and watched the maid busily cleaning up the mess. "I'll stand here and watch until you learn to pay more attention." The maid, though frightened, didn't dare hesitate and immediately started cleaning. "I apologize. I'll clean it up right away, madam." A flicker of guilt crossed Ophelia's face. She wasn't sure if she should be doing this. Even if it was for the sake of getting a divorce, did it really have to come to this? Just then, Oliver rushed over from afar. "Madam, what's going on here?" Hearing a voice, she turned and saw that it was Oliver. She rejoiced inwardly. "Perfect. A senior figure has appeared. I'll take this opportunity to make him angry too." She put her hands on her hips, and said haughtily, "I'm merely disciplining incompetent staff. Is there a problem with that?" Looking at his expression, she couldn't help but anticipate his anger. Get angry. Get angry with me, Oliver." But contrary to her expectations, he clapped his hands and said with a deeply moved expression, "Wonderful. Oh, this is wonderful." Ophelia looked at the effusive Oliver in bewilderment. This child was cleaning the hallway with dirty water, so it must have been an eyesore for you, wasn't it? Such things deserve a scolding. He then said sternly. However, he proceeded to inspect the young maid, leaving Ophelia dumbfounded. What is going on? After his inspection, Oliver became even more emotional. "Despite such disrespect, you still haven't struck this child." He continued, "Last time, you poked a servant in the eye and made them bathe themselves in freezing water. But now, you've only spilled some water on the floor." Ophelia was stunned by the reminder of her past actions. Then, Oliver took out a handkerchief to wipe his tears. The older one gets, the easier it is to cry. Ophelia inwardly screamed about the image of her character in the novel. "I'm the one who wants to cry." So, Plan B had also failed, but she still wouldn't give up that, this is strange. This person was born cruel. Waiting until nightfall, when the guards had left, Ophelia stealthily snuck into Sylvester's study. Thinking to herself, final plan, she looked around and entered the room. Even if Ophelia were a genius, she wouldn't dare do this. Not with her strong personality. Steal his money, she thought, opening the drawer. But then she remembered her image. He'd see her gambling and being promiscuous with the stolen money. What a shame, she muttered. Ophelia is infamous. No one would dare come near me. After rummaging for a while, she mumbled, "No receipts? I can't find them. They'll be furious when they disappear." She was slightly disappointed. If he'd just agreed to a divorce, it would be so much easier. She recalled their previous conversation. This is the 5th time he's refused a divorce. He runs away just seeing my face. If he tells me to leave again, I'll go crazy. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as if she'd seen something interesting. She picked up a black package. The seal on the package caught Ophelia's attention that I've seen this seal somewhere before. Just then, Sylvester walked in and was taken aback by her actions. "What are you doing?" Startled, she spun around. "Sylvester Raisin." Remembering her goal, she feigned innocence that I was just looking through your study, as you can see. I thought there might be some money or something, but there's nothing here. You seem a bit hesitant. Yes, she thought, thrilled that her plan seemed to be working success. He looks genuinely angry. Finally, a divorce. But his reaction was different. He grasped her shoulders and looked at her cheerfully. "Now you're acting like the lady of the house." "That's it?" she asked, confused. "Yes," Sylvester continued, still misunderstanding. "I thought you'd finally come to your senses." Ophelia was completely bewildered. What is he talking about? Silence fell over the room. Still in disbelief, Ophelia stammered, "You saw what I was doing, right?" Sylvester seemed confused. "My hearing is perfectly fine, Ophelia." Suddenly, she blurted out, "I was going to steal your money." He calmly replied, "Yes, you were trying to steal my affections. That's the easiest and fastest way to make someone else's belongings your own." He looked at her tenderly. "It's been a while since I've felt this happy." She stared back at him, dumbfounded. She quickly turned away, slapping her cheeks. "Snap out of it. This is ridiculous." She sank back into her thoughts. I didn't consider that when confronting Sylvester, I'd have to be careful about that. She knew his background was somewhat unique. Even if it's only half, this man still has demonic blood. Sylvester had a secret power, charm. She remembered the rumors. People say Duke Vezin amassed his fortune and earned his title thanks to that special ability. She reaffirmed her earlier perception. Just now, he tried to use his charm on me, to make me obey and act according to his will. She whirled around and raised her voice. "Encouraging me to steal money is acting like the lady of the house? That's a new one." He remained calm. "Oh, you know I'm the head of the Information Guild?" She retorted, "I know that." He just smiled faintly. Then, he produced a bracelet from his pocket. Horrified, she looked at her wrist. "Where's my bracelet?" He turned to walk towards the bookshelf as he continued speaking. "Stealing information or assets is the same thing. At least, the act of stealing, it's a fundamental skill in our line of work." Then he turned back to look at her seductively. "If you'd like, I can teach you a few things." She stared at the crazy man in horror. Now she didn't know what to do anymore. Extravagant spending had failed. Bullying the servants hadn't worked either. Even theft, which she thought was the best option, hadn't worked. It was at this moment that her inner voice spoke up, drawing his attention. Then she yelled, "What do I have to do to get you to agree to a divorce?" He stared at her in disbelief. Realizing she'd spoken out of turn, she covered her mouth. "Oh no." He He took a step closer, his expression darkening. That's strange. He pressed in close to her. Why are you suddenly bringing up divorce like this? He sounded hurt. You said you'd stay by my side until you drained me dry, until I died. She couldn't believe it. Did I really say that? He continued. You even said you'd just sit still like a sculpture, because the only thing you liked was this face. She quickly pleaded, I take it back. Please, just pretend it never happened, and agree to a divorce. He turned away, sulking, no. But she persisted, why not? He finally opened his eyes and looked at her. That's what I want to ask. He stared intently at her, enunciating each word. I have enough money for you to live on for the rest of your life. He knew she wasn't just attracted to money, but also to beauty. And what have I done wrong? Just looking at me is enough to satisfy you. But in the end, he wanted a proper reason. Oh, why have you decided to divorce me? She remained silent. She knew very well that the title of Duchess Raisin came with many advantages. Moreover, Sylvester had overlooked Ophelia's blatant flirting with the crown prince. So suddenly bringing up divorce would make him suspicious. He might think she had another plan. But in this situation, she had to go with the most common excuse. She said firmly, because I don't love you. He was silent for a moment before replying. Because you love the crown prince? She was startled. What? Why is the conversation suddenly going in that direction? He turned away sadly. All right, it's useless no matter what you say. Of course it is. She quickly called out, wanting to explain that, and oh no, that's not it. Suddenly, he agreed. All right, he agreed, but with the condition that I've never said this to you before, but let's make a deal. She was confused at a deal. He affirmed, that's right. He reached out and pulled her closer, seduced the crown prince, and bring him to your side. If you do that, I'll agree to a divorce. She couldn't understand. So, on the day of departure, everything was prepared. The carriage was waiting outside. She leaned tiredly against the carriage seat. Even though he was reading the newspaper, he still noticed her. The ground's going to cave in. Why are you sighing so much? She thought angrily, why? It's all because of you. She tried to renegotiate with him that I can't do it. Bringing the crown prince to my side. Do you think that's even possible? He calmly continued reading. Interesting. Are you trying to save face now? Then he asked, who was the one following the crown prince? Who was hiding in the bushes at the imperial palace, spying on and following the crown prince? She guiltily turned her head away. Who was it, I wonder? He wouldn't let it go. Who was the one who intercepted the crown prince's invitation and grabbed the hair of the invited ladies? She still avoided him. That's why I'm saying this. He still persisted. Who was the one who brandished a knife and threatened to gouge out the eyes of anyone who dared look at the crown prince? It drove her to the point where she couldn't take it anymore and begged, stop it. I understand already. She knew she couldn't do anything, so she cried dry tears. Based on the conversation so far, she understood Sylvester's intentions. She knew that Sylvester wanted the second prince on the throne, but the fact that the crown prince was currently supported by the emperor was troublesome. She began to deduce the relationship between Sylvester, the crown prince, and her own position. So, naturally, he had a hostile relationship with Crown Prince Callian. At that moment, Ophelia appeared, and she was madly in love with the crown prince. The plot points of the novel gradually came together for her. And also because of Ophelia, the crown prince's love life was getting more and more attention. It even reached the point where the emperor publicly reprimanded the crown prince. Now, she also understood the deal with Sylvester. The deal Sylvester had proposed was probably to make full use of her as a pawn. The more chaos she caused, the more precarious the crown prince's position would become. She sighed dejectedly. Are you planning to use your own wife like this? He remained expressionless, reading the newspaper as he replied. So how could you leave your husband and seduce another man? That would be even worse. Finally, he folded the newspaper, but continued speaking. Anyway, after divorcing me, you'll pursue the crown prince. So, it's better for you to do it while you're still the duchess. It'll be more advantageous for me. But Ophelia was still curious that, if I succeed, will you really agree to a divorce? He affirmed yes. He smiled and glanced at her. I'll be waiting, Ophelia. The carriage stopped. It was now dark, and the full moon shone brightly in the sky. A servant softly announced, "We've arrived, madam." Ophelia stepped out and stared at the magnificent palace before her, thinking in surprise, so this is the imperial palace in real life. Sylvester followed, carrying her cloak. It's been a while since the imperial palace held a banquet, so the crown prince will definitely be there. You know what you have to do, right? Ophelia was distracted, staring intently at the palace in front of her, not paying attention to what he was saying. His long, slender fingers gently touched the rim of Ophelia's ear, brushing her hair aside. She instinctively dodged his hand in a daze, then turned to look at him with a bewildered expression. Sylvester leaned closer to her face and said, "You've changed, haven't you?" His eyes suddenly turned melancholic. His fingers toyed with a strand of her hair as he slowly said, "Even if your hair was a complete mess, you wouldn't care. Ophelia finally reacted and stepped back to avoid him. Her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment as she stammered, "Ah, that." Sylvester withdrew his hand and said, "Actually, the look of a slightly crazy woman isn't so bad." He finished speaking and turned away, covering his mouth with a cough as if hiding some emotion. Ophelia, hearing this, immediately bristled. "Hey, that's wild charm," she thought to herself. This two-faced man. Inside the palace, it was incredibly luxurious. The magnificent golden chandeliers glittered brilliantly. Below, beautifully dressed nobles laughed and chatted merrily. Ophelia was overwhelmed by the scene, her eyes and mouth wide with surprise. She looked at everything with disbelief. She clenched her hands and exclaimed, "This is amazing." She slowly stepped inside, anxiously thinking, "This is the first time I've been to such a crowded place. If I hadn't transmigrated into this book, I wouldn't have even dared to dream of this. So, it turns out that when I'm healthy, I can go to places like this." She continued walking as the people around her chattered incessantly. Her thoughts suddenly grew heavy. Scornful whispers echoed around her. "Oh my God, I can't believe she's actually here today. She must have a reason for coming here. Be quiet, someone might hear you." These words made the atmosphere around her suddenly become oppressively dark. Frightened, she turned her head. Behind her, they were still gossiping. Sweating, she thought, "It's like a virus, isn't it?" From afar, footsteps approached, accompanied by a voice saying, "Well, she's not bad looking." Startled, she turned her head to look at the speaker. Her eyes were immediately drawn to the speaker's glossy, platinum blonde hair and deep gray eyes. A muscular physique and a noble aura radiated silently from them. Her expression immediately changed. Fear filled her eyes, and her brows furrowed in worry. She thought, "What am I going to do now?" Recalling the plot, the laws of this world were bizarre. A woman living alone, without reason, would be thrown into prison. Although absurd, there was no other way around it. That was just how it was set up. She imagined the prison cell, filled with weeping women, a sign hanging on the door listing their crimes. Even though divorce was troublesome, if she tried to run away and live alone, she would be imprisoned. But thinking positively, she cheerfully picked up her suitcase and left, chuckling. No handcuffs, divorced, lost her family, parents gone. She continued her cheerful train of thought. As long as she could live alone, no obstacle could hinder her freedom. Looking at the crown prince's tall figure, she thought, "First, I have to make the crown prince hate me less." Lost in her fantasy, she didn't notice the crown prince raise his hand to summon a guard. He pointed directly at her and said loudly, "Get her out of here." Snapped out of her thoughts by his words, Ophelia recoiled in fear. Her head spun, confused. Her expression was quite comical. Soon, two guards reached her, their expressions unfriendly. Fearfully, she raised her hands defensively, stammering, "Wait. Don't come any closer." She placed a hand on her chest and said loudly, "Why are you suddenly kicking me out? I haven't done anything." Kalyan, the crown prince, stared at her, dumbfounded. After a few seconds, his expression changed, a smirk forming on his lips. "Unbelievable," he said. "You haven't done anything today." He emphasized the word today, then continued, "You think you did nothing last week?" Ophelia silently clenched her fists in front of her chest, listening. She thought indignantly, "What? I've been so well behaved since I transmigrated." Kalyan, looking at her bewildered expression, said, "That shameless look on your face. Speechless, aren't you?" He sternly recounted her actions, destroying the crown prince's palace, stealing invitations, brandishing a knife, publicly insulting and bullying others. "Anything else? Do I need to spell out for you?" Not long ago, an unmarked box had been sent to the countess. Ophelia thought to herself, a box sent to the female lead? Could it be that the original Ophelia sent it before I transmigrated? The box was filled with cursed magic. The scene flashed back to the day the female lead opened the box. Dark magic billowed out. If a priest hadn't been present to examine the box, she would have been cursed. You know what was written inside that box? Kalyan asked, his expression a mixture of astonishment and something else as he looked at the imaginary box. Inside the box were notes inscribed with magic spells. Written in red ink and tiny letters, it read, "Sly old fox." Who on earth sent this? She held her head in fear, thinking, who else could it be? It must be Ophelia. Her expression immediately did a 180. Rubbing her hands together insincerely, she said, "I wonder who sent this? What a wicked person." Kalyan's face frowned in displeasure. She thought fearfully, that cruel expression. Her eyes hardened as she continued to think, "I really do feel wrong. But first I should bow." Kalyan spoke up, "If you dare approach the countess again, I won't let you off the hook." Ophelia quickly cut him off, holding out her hand and replying, "I know, just drop it." Kalyan, startled, exclaimed, "What?" Ophelia cried crossed her arms and calmly stated, I won't approach her. I won't even think about approaching her anymore. Hearing her say this, Kallian, for some reason, gritted his teeth in anger. He then yelled, don't even greet her or do anything else. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. Seeing Crown Prince Kallian so agitated, the surrounding people began to gossip incessantly. Ophelia's face darkened as she thought, even when I say I understand, he still blows up. Then she calmly replied, yes, your highness. Then the matter of greetings should be addressed by your highness to the countess. Behind them, the nobles snickered as if watching a comedy. Kallian growled angrily, Ophelia Ryzen, get out. He pointed a finger behind him. She thought exasperatedly, he's being so unreasonable, and he still tells me to get out. Bracing his hands, he continued, if you don't leave on your own, I'll have you thrown out. Guards, get this wicked woman out of here. Without noticing, a pair of shoes approached from behind them. Suddenly, a voice rang out, what wicked woman? At the same time, an arm draped over Ophelia's shoulder. Startled, she turned to see that it was Sylvester. He drew her closer, his arm around her shoulder. Speaking to my wife like that is a bit much, don't you think? Ophelia stared blankly at the man before her. The crown prince frowned, Duke Sylvester. Sylvester's expression was slightly worried. Sylvester spoke up in his wife's defense. Even if that item was cursed, hasn't it been established that we don't know who sent it? Sylvester stepped in front of Ophelia. He shielded her with his hand and continued with a stern expression, my wife is the Duchess. Your Highness should not treat her so carelessly. Ophelia, standing behind him, clutched her hands to her chest, surprised. What is he saying? Kallian scoffed, I heard that your wife asked for a divorce. Is that not correct? So why doesn't the Duke just divorce her? Ophelia was horrified, anxiously thinking, how does the Crown Prince know about that top secret information? Kallian continued smugly, because that woman has fallen in love with another man. With an incredibly contemptuous expression, he pointed at himself. Sylvester calmly looked at him, while Ophelia was utterly shocked, her mind blown by his narcissism. Her hands trembled with anger as she glared at him, thinking that self-satisfied expression. The male lead is so childish. Why bother shrugging it off? No, I need to get out of here first. Thinking this, she nudged Sylvester and said, how about we leave this place now? Sylvester, ignoring her words, blushed and stammered. It's probably because I love my wife so much that I don't want a divorce. Sylvester's acting was so convincing, so incredibly affectionate, so much that I don't want a divorce. As he spoke, his face flushed with embarrassment. Kallian was stunned, frozen by his words. Sylvester's words made Ophelia blush crimson. She couldn't help but cry out in embarrassment. The three of them stood there, looking at each other, as if they were the center of the party. All eyes were on them. Whispers started up again. Duke Sylvester's gaze is so intense, but it's also romantic. So romantic. Someone else chimed in with a loaded comment. What good points does that wicked woman even have? I guess they must be pretty captivating. Ophelia, frightened and bewildered, heard the unpleasant gossip about herself. Glancing at Sylvester, his innocent expression made her even more uncomfortable. Sylvester suddenly winked at her, turning the surrounding atmosphere into a sweet, rosy hue. His face was even flushed with apparent shyness. But his actions made Ophelia freeze on the spot. Her expression went stiff. Not long after, the two left the party. In a room, Ophelia, arms crossed and lips pouted, said, husband, let's talk. Hearing her voice, Sylvester looked up. The man opposite him also turned in surprise to look at Ophelia. Isn't that Duchess Razor? Sylvester quickly stood up and said, as you can see, it seems my wife wants to be by my side. The man and his attendant laughed good-naturedly, teasing, haha, just like newlyweds. So the rumors were just rumors, huh? Sylvester cheerfully waved goodbye. Ophelia, already embarrassed and red-faced, walked ahead. Once they were in the hallway, he said, you came to my rescue just in time. Thank you. But now other troublesome rumors will start. Ophelia, walking in front, replied, I didn't know beforehand. It was just a coincidence. They reached the balcony. Ophelia opened the double doors with both hands, Sylvester following behind her. She continued, also, why did you say that in front of the crown prince just now? He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, and asked, what do you mean? Ophelia, exasperated, gestured with her hands, replying, you said you loved me. Sylvester stroked his chin thoughtfully and said, I had to, so the crown prince would pay more attention to you. She asked suspiciously what? Sylvester smiled devilishly. You hate me, right? So if I said I loved you, wouldn't he be more interested? This made Ophelia freeze. She asked, so that was part of your plan? He replied, exactly. For some reason, Ophelia bit her lip angrily. Turning away, she sighed, it's a shame I can only say you don't know, shame. Sylvester, stunned, said what? Ophelia complained. You should have told me beforehand, at least. If the shock is too great, people will notice me and whisper about it forever. Sylvester innocently replied, "You're just going to listen to them? You should take their shoes and beaks away." In his mind, he imagined her hitting people, adding dye. Hearing this, Ophelia just hung her head dejectedly. Tiredly, she said, "I'm not doing that kind of thing anymore." Remembering the crown prince's angry face, Ophelia began to analyze. "Your plan isn't realistic at all. There's no way the crown prince would fall for me just because of that. You saw his reaction just now. It was like he didn't know what to do because he hates me so much." Sylvester calmly replied, "He's always like that. Just seeing your shadow is enough to—" He trailed off. "Exactly," Ophelia exclaimed angrily. "You knew that, and yet—" Before she could finish, Sylvester cut her off with a sweet voice. "You can do it, Ophelia." He reached out and caressed her face. Sylvester tucked her hair behind her ear, continuing soothingly, "Because you're the most beautiful woman on the continent." Ophelia, as if mesmerized, looked at him with loving eyes. She gazed at him dreamily, thinking he looked like he was bathed in moonlight, dusted with starlight, sparkling. Sylvester continued to look at her tenderly. She clenched her fists, trying to regain her composure. Could this be the influence of some enchanting energy? Or was it something else? Lost in thought, she finally spoke. "Even a beautiful woman with a bad temper will be disliked." "I'm the worst, you know," Sylvester replied. "So you're aware of your narcissism, huh?" She retorted, "Just shut up." Sylvester sighed, defeated. All right. Ophelia's brother stood lost in thought, gazing at the countless twinkling stars in the sky. He looked at her, bathed in the soft, ethereal moonlight. How beautiful she was. Her thoughts returned, and she said to him, "I'll accept this deal." Hearing her answer, a smile unconsciously played on his lips. She consoled herself with the thought, "I know the rules. So, I'll find a way to make the crown prince fall for me." The crown prince's imposing figure suddenly appeared in her mind. "And so," she said, "but I'll add one condition." Sylvester asked curiously, "What is it?" Ophelia replied, "Every time the crown prince shows affection for me, you have to give me money." Good heavens, I never expected such a condition from her. What a pragmatic person, he thought. Sylvester, incredulous, asked, "What?" With a bewildered, vacant expression. Ophelia smiled brightly and said, "Because after the divorce, if I want to live comfortably on my own, don't I need money?" Then she cheerfully laid out her price list for him. 1 letter, 10 gold coins. 1 bouquet, 20 gold coins. As for other instances, we'll discuss those when they arise. The letters and bouquets in his mind suddenly became strangely alluring and sparkly. She asked cheerfully, "So what do you think?" He looked at her, silent, taking in her ambitious, money-hungry gaze. He sighed, then conceded, "Fine." He immediately tossed her a gold coin, saying generously, "Here's some money in advance." Her eyes lit up as she snatched it. Her eyes widened. She thought, this is a gold coin with a royal insignia. This gleaming coin. Isn't this equivalent to 50 ordinary gold coins? Overjoyed, she curtsied and said, "I'll accept this with gratitude." Turning to leave, she smiled happily, clutching the coin in both hands, leaving Sylvester behind. Suddenly, he called out, "You're quite something, aren't you?" He strolled towards her, saying as he walked, "Do you want to hear a common expression used in the back alleys of the Doyen residence?" Ophelia asked curiously, "What is it?" He reached her side, leaned in close, and replied, "You get what you pay for." She still looked confused. He gave a chilling, devilish grin and said, "Otherwise, your wrist won't be there anymore." Ophelia was instantly terrified. Her cheerful mood vanished, replaced by sheer fear. Sylvester dropped his frightening expression and smiled brightly. "Remember that," he said. With that, he walked away, leaving her alone. She regained her composure and smiled mischievously, thinking, "Drop dead." Not long after, she returned to the residence. Ophelia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She tossed and turned, thinking, considering Kalian's current level of hatred for me, my head will probably roll before my wrist even gets a chance. The only thing I can do is act like the female lead. In the original story, Fleur saving Kalian planted the seeds of love. Then, with much help and encouragement from Kalian, the two main characters' affection grew even stronger. Ophelia yawned, thinking to herself that she needed to follow through with one of those actions. The principle would change, but who cared? First, she had to survive. And Ophelia, in her sleepy haze, put her hand to her mouth, saying, "In order to do that." The scene changed to Duchess Raisin's room. "Irene, are there any invitations from Countess Caudale?" Ophelia asked, reaching for a teacup. The maid replied with a startled, "Yes, madam." Speaking of the Caudale family, one of the most prominent noble families in the Empire. And also a noble family favored by the previous empress, the crown prince's mother. Before her death, the empress wrote a letter to the crown prince and hid it within the Caudale family. But actually, the members of the Caudale family don't even know about the letter's existence, because she loved to play jokes. If I find that hidden letter and give it to Kalian, maybe then he'll change his mind about me, the Duchess mused, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. Irene stood by, bewildered. She hesitantly asked, "Are you sure about this, madam? Madam doesn't get along with her, does she? Or rather, you don't like her." Ophelia explained irritably. "She has money, that's all. But she always pretends to be so noble. If there's an invitation from her, burn it immediately." Irene simply bowed her head. Ophelia, embarrassed, asked, "So that means there aren't any invitations?" Irene said, "Since the last royal banquet, ever since you spilled water on Countess Cadale, there haven't been any invitations. I heard that the Countess has been afraid of you since then." The maid continued, "Do you really intend to go to the Cadale mansion?" Ophelia replied, "I'd like to, but I don't have an invitation, so I can't go." "But can't you just go anyway?" the maid wondered. A thought sparked in the Duchess's mind. The scene shifted to the Cadale mansion at a tea party. The ladies chattered excitedly. "Oh my, look at this color. It's so beautiful. It suits the Countess perfectly, especially the ruby in the center. Only the Countess could pull off this necklace." The guests continued their flattery, aiming to please the Countess. She smirked, a satisfied smile spreading across her face that, "Ah, yes, that's so." Not stopping there, they continued their fawning that it's truly wonderful to find such a precious thing for his wife. "I wish I were the Countess." The Countess said, "I suppose in my husband's eyes, I'm the most beautiful woman." "Oh, how romantic. Is that how the Count sees it? But there's no one in the Empire as beautiful as the Countess anyway." They competed to express their admiration. "Ha, look at how jealous they are of me," she thought smugly. The Countess laughed loudly and said proudly, "It's nothing really. I hold tea parties just to hear these kinds of things." Suddenly, her gaze landed on a young woman, and she thought, she doesn't grasp the atmosphere at all, just sitting there gloomy and silent. "I heard her family is on the verge of bankruptcy. She should at least show some sincerity." No tact at all. The Countess thought that I'll have to teach her a lesson later. She put on a fake smile and asked, "Would you like to try it on?" The others chimed in with their flattery. "Oh, that would be lovely. How exciting. This necklace." They were chatting merrily when a young woman suddenly cried out in alarm, "See, Countess, look behind you." Countess Cadale turned around in confusion. "What?" When she clearly saw the person approaching, she wondered in astonishment why they were here. Duchess Ryzen spoke up that it's been a while. "How have you been?" Countess Cadale, as if petrified, stammered, Your Grace, what brings you?" I thought Ophelia's shamelessness would actually be useful in situations like this. She thought, recalling what her maid had said, "You don't need an invitation, madam. You could just walk in and they'll welcome you. So I just need to walk in and they'll welcome me." The Countess's shocked expression darkened. Ophelia appeared calm, but inside, she was thinking, I'm so nervous. Dealing with Sylvester or Callian is difficult enough, but dealing with a group of nobles at a tea party like this is a completely different matter. She reassured herself and said, "It's a bit awkward just standing here like this. Aren't you going to offer me a cup of tea?" Cadale broke out in a cold sweat, telling herself, "Don't be scared. This is my house." She forced a smile that you've gone to a lot of trouble to come here, but what can we do? As you can see, there aren't any empty seats. "So it seems we won't be able to entertain the Duchess properly," she continued, thinking, "So just go back. Please, take a hint." Suddenly, the quiet young woman from earlier stood up and spoke. "Duchess, if it's all right with you, please take my seat." The Countess was aghast. Ophelia was also surprised, but she immediately smiled and said, "Thank you." The young woman looked hesitant and a little embarrassed as she helped the Duchess into the seat. Countess Cadale thought, "This foolish girl, does she even realize what she's doing?" Upstairs, the Duke leaned against the doorway, looking down. He wondered why Ophelia was there. "I came here because I had something to discuss with Count Cadale, but doesn't she hate him?" Suddenly, Count Cadale entered and asked, "Your Grace, is something the matter?" The Duke replied, "Nothing much. I'm just watching my wife." The Count paled. "What? Why is the Duchess here?" The Duke calmly asked, "Is there a problem with that?" The Count stammered, "But it seems your wife didn't receive an invitation from my wife." Hearing this, the Duke's expression hardened. My wife. Since when did she require an invitation to come here? The Count immediately bowed his head. "I apologize. I sincerely apologize. But may I excuse myself for a moment? I think I should go to my wife." He continued, and the Duke, arms crossed, stood aside and said, "Go ahead. If my wife causes any more mischief, it will be difficult for your Countess." Count Cadale bowed. "Thank you. I'll be back shortly." Then he quickly left. The Duke fell into thought. Last time, she spilled water on his wife, and then her hair caught fire. She's definitely not going to let this go today. Honestly, when has she ever let anything go quietly? The Duke thought with a slightly exasperated air. Suddenly, a voice called from the doorway. "May I come in?" It was new. He quickly entered, saying, "I just saw the Count run off with a pale face. Is something wrong?" The Duke replied, "Who knows? Perhaps it's because my wife is here." "What? The Duchess is here?" New exclaimed in surprise. The Duke said excitedly, I have no idea. Could it be that she's here to help me with work? Nu wiped his brow. If that's the case, then that's wonderful. The Duke glared at him, pointedly stating, how well you know. The man hurriedly covered his mouth. Oh, I apologize. I can't speak kindly about the Duchess. If you don't want to be like Ophelia and have your tongue cut out, you'd best be careful. The Duke spoke as he took the stack of documents from the man's hand. He feigned understanding. Of course. I wouldn't want to lose my job. He continued, I heard the Duchess brought up the divorce again yesterday, and you refused again. The Duke calmly replied, indeed. The man clenched his fist, feigning anger. Why is that, Your Grace? On the contrary, if you were to file suit and demand repayment for the money she spent, you might not even receive it. The Duke's gaze turned sharp as he continued. Everyone despises Ophelia. They believe she's tarnished your reputation, that she's unsuitable for this family, a truly vicious woman. Why won't you agree to a divorce? He questioned. The Duke stated seriously, because I'm quite satisfied with the present situation. Yes, if it's hard to understand. From the very beginning, I've been very satisfied. He recalled the scene of their first meeting. I am Ophelia of the Markfin family. She was the first woman his charm had no effect on. Thinking it over, he said, she has her uses. With Ophelia being so notorious, the attention on me lessens. Wasn't the road tax increase quickly quelled by the news of Ophelia wielding a knife? Moreover, this time she's determined to seduce the crown prince. Isn't that what she usually does? It's no different, is it? The Duke chuckled coldly. Indeed, Ophelia has changed. He considered. But even if she's different, if before I liken her to a mad, indiscriminate wild bull, perhaps now she's more like a fox. The Duke placed his hand on the window and said, how very intriguing. But no matter the animal, it will eventually be devoured by the wolf. He looked down below with a captivated expression. What spectacle will you show me next? The scene changed to the tea party below. Countess Cadale gritted her teeth. Take it. Just take the necklace. They fearfully knelt before Ophelia. She looked surprised, holding the box containing the necklace, stunned. Why? Why have things turned out this way? Returning to the moment before, first of all, I've already sat down. Everyone's faces displayed anxiety. Panicked, Ophelia was caught between laughter and tears. What am I supposed to do with this suffocating atmosphere? They look like they're ready to fight. Suddenly, her eyes landed on something. That's the necklace that appeared in the novel. A necklace with a brilliant red ruby in the center. She spoke up. This is the dragon's necklace, isn't it? Hearing this, Countess Cadale froze for a moment. She thought, haha, even the Duke acknowledges it. Well, it's true. This necklace is absolutely magnificent. Then, Countess Cadale lifted her teacup and said cheerfully, yes, it's quite rare. It was a gift from my husband. Oh, Ophelia exclaimed in admiration. It's truly beautiful. However, everyone misinterpreted her words. They all looked horrified, their faces paling. What's with that reaction? Does she want this necklace? They thought, no way, Duchess. Count Cadale gave her that necklace as a token of his love. A young woman spoke up. Others chimed in, that's right. No matter how greedy you are, you can't have this. Countess, please refuse her. Countess Cadale was bewildered. What are you all talking about? The thought kept swirling in her head. She's a witch. Even high-ranking priests can't easily break her curse. If she snaps because she's in a bad mood. The Countess timidly glanced at Ophelia. Ophelia, on the other hand, was shocked. Greedy? What did I ever act that way? But beautiful can be interpreted differently based on how people speak here. How could she think I just wanted to lighten the mood by complimenting her necklace? Oh no, my hands are shaking. It's okay. I just need to say I didn't mean anything deep by it. Even if it's because of that letter, I have to calm things down. Ophelia stood up to explain. It seems you've misunderstood something. The Countess cried out in alarm. She felt an invisible pressure weighing down on her mind. Recalling how she had been bullied in the past, she clutched her head and screamed in utter terror. Take it away. Everyone was startled by this. The young woman who had given up her seat for Ophelia was also taken aback. Suddenly, the Countess found it strange. Why is it so quiet? Isn't she going to hit me? Or am I being too sensitive? Countess Cadale wondered. She looked up. The tea from earlier had spilled onto Ophelia. Countess Cadale said in a panicked voice, Ah, Your Grace. The Countess wondered to herself, why isn't she angry? Could she be enduring it? When she heard I had the dragon's necklace, she quickly came to find me. She definitely has a plan. The Countess thought, then yanked the necklace from her neck. She's trying to create an excuse to take the necklace. If I don't give it to her, she'll definitely take revenge. I don't care if I'm cursed, but if it's my husband. Thinking of this, the Countess started to cry, tears streaming down her cheeks. She gritted her teeth and, holding the necklace out to Ophelia, said, Take it. Take this necklace. The Countess bowed her head as she offered the necklace, still weeping. Ophelia, completely surprised, didn't understand what was happening. "Ah, why are you giving this to me?" Holding in her hand, she was still bewildered. Seeing the Countess slumped on the ground crying, Ophelia quickly explained, "I truly appreciate the gesture, but I came here for this." "Oh no, I didn't intend to take it." Ophelia was flustered. "So, did she come here to take something else? What could be more valuable than this?" The Countess wondered, clenching her fist. Ophelia gaped, thinking she's not getting it at all. Suddenly, a shimmering gold handkerchief was offered to her. It was the young woman who had given up her seat earlier. "Who is this?" she wondered. "Does she want me to comfort the Countess with this handkerchief?" Understanding the gesture, Ophelia accepted the handkerchief with a shy look. She then approached the Countess, who was still slumped on the ground. "Don't cry," she comforted, gently offering the handkerchief. But the Countess thought Ophelia was threatening her. "Before I go mad and smash it," she thought, her fear increasing with Ophelia's gentle smile. "I don't understand." "Oh dear, it seems there's another misunderstanding. Ophelia, how much have you upset her? This is so pitiful." Thinking this, Ophelia reached out to place a comforting hand on the Countess's shoulder. Suddenly, the Countess stood up and said, "I apologize. I'm not feeling well. The tea party should end here. I apologize." With that, she turned and quickly left, leaving everyone dumbfounded. It was hard to understand. A girl called out after Countess Cadale. I went with Ophelia, bewildered. "Wait a minute." She rested her hand on the box containing the necklace and said helplessly, "I don't know. It's like I also have a talent for robbery." Suddenly, a system notification popped up. Legend has obtained the dragon's necklace. Speaking of a dragon's necklace, it's a precious piece of jewelry made from dragon scales and adorned with the most dazzling ruby. Its value is perhaps immeasurable in terms of money. Just this one piece of jewelry is enough to exchange for a whole mine. With this necklace in hand, I wouldn't even need to seduce the crown prince. I wouldn't need to bow my head before him for a few gold coins. Ophelia thought about how she had to painstakingly serve that duke. But then she remembered how everyone trembled before her, and she fell in a deep thought. Suddenly, a maid nearby turned around and said, "Oh yes, yes." It turned out Ophelia had spoken, ordering her, "Go and tell your master that I, Ophelia Raisin, wish to meet Count Cadale." Back to Ophelia's train of thought, she mused, "I've already experienced the life of a commoner, so I can't accept this." The scene shifted to Count Cadale's drawing room. Two figures sat at the long table. Count Cadale spoke, "My apologies, Duchess. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared everything." Ophelia replied softly, "It was just a spontaneous visit. You needn't apologize." She continued, "You must have heard from your wife. I received the dragon's necklace." She spoke as she lifted her teacup. Count Cadale replied awkwardly, "I did hear. My wife gave you a gift." The Duchess calmly said, "What gift?" Then she opened the box. Inside was a sparkling necklace. It was the dragon's necklace. "Yes," she said, "I'm here to return it." Hearing this, Count Cadale was utterly surprised. "Well, this gift is a bit too much for me," the Duchess continued, "but my wife already gave it to you. If you return it like this." The Count hesitated. Ophelia thought, good, time to play my card. Her plan was to return the necklace and exchange it for the Empress's letter. Thinking this, she sighed dramatically. Yes, it's quite a predicament. Returning a gift is rather embarrassing. But it's not just me. It will also affect the Cadale family, she continued. Then, slamming the table, she stood up and declared, "I want to make a trade." The scene changed to a carriage speeding down the road. Inside was the Duchess. She was admiring her prize and smiling with satisfaction. "I got it." It was a letter from the former Empress Margaret. She thought to herself, "I knew it was hidden behind the painting, but I didn't expect the painting to be in such poor condition." In the original story, while clumsily readjusting the painting, the protagonist had found it. Actually, returning the necklace is a bit of a shame, but it's also a great relief. With this letter alone, I'll gain favor with the crown prince, she thought cheerfully. Trading an old painting for a necklace that's an imperial treasure. I wonder if people would be surprised if they knew how Ophelia has changed. She imagined everyone around her admiring her, smiled brightly, and said, "Two birds with one stone. Just a short trip out, and I've already reaped such a harvest." Hi. However, the next day, when she woke up and read the newspapers, she suddenly screamed, "What is this?" Lines of information kept appearing before her eyes. Duchess Vezin has stolen Count Cadale's expensive artwork. Wearing a self-portrait of a genius painter, it has fallen into the hands of a terrible owner. Countess Cadale has been bullied by an uninvited guest. Ophelia was horrified and couldn't believe it. Now she was being called an art thief. I didn't know that painting was so valuable. She clutched her head, pulling at her hair, And no matter how I look at it, it's just a painting of a man. She consoled herself. It's okay. I already got the former empress's letter. Now I just have to return the painting. Return it? What are you talking about? The Duke suddenly spoke up from behind her. There's no way we can return it. Then he said excitedly, you were amazing, you know, bringing back such a valuable painting. If we keep this painting for another 15 years, its price will go up to tens of millions in gold. You see, Ophelia asked, puzzled, but why 15 years? The Duke calmly replied, because that's when the artist will die. The artist is already old, though. It can't be as soon as 15 years, can it? He revealed a delighted smile. Ophelia froze, struggling. Stop touching it. Give it here. I said I'd return it. Why would you say that? The Duke said with a pout. If it's in my house, it's mine now. And besides, I've touched it, so it's mine. Ophelia exclaimed, oh, how childish. She said irritably, but because of this painting, the rumors about me are getting worse. How can I just let it be? The Duke asked, perplexed. Since when have you been so sensitive to rumors? Starting today, Ophelia replied. He propped his chin on his hand, looking at her domineeringly. Why don't you live the way you used to? What good is it to care about your reputation now? You should reflect on your actions over the past while. It's already pretty bad, isn't it? The young ladies at the tea party said you hit Countess Cadeo and made her cry. You also brought back the expensive portrait that the Count treasures. And yet now you care about your reputation. Hearing this, she froze in disbelief, feeling trapped. The things Ophelia had done all this time were selfish and cruel to others. To everyone, Ophelia was like the devil incarnate. Even if I try to live as myself or help and care for others, this world only sees me as the Ophelia of the past. She chuckled dryly to no one is on my side. Hearing this, the Duke looked at Ophelia in surprise, seeing her deep sadness. Suddenly, the Duke moved closer to her and said, so you don't think I'll be on your side? Ophelia said awkwardly, Sylvester, I wish you were mute. I thought it was a touching moment, but it turns out it's just annoying. She said, who am I suffering like this for? Then she pushed his face away. The Duke chuckled awkwardly. I know. Ophelia snapped. Honestly, you only know how to joke. Sylvester thought about his wife. Ophelia, it's only been a day, and she's already caused chaos throughout the empire. Everywhere I go, it's all stories about her. But when Countess Cadeo and I discussed raising taxes yesterday, no one cared. Everyone paid more attention to her arrogance than to boring politics. Ophelia Risen, a wicked woman, can capture everyone's attention. You can do whatever you want, be free, be unrestrained. But there's just one thing. You must not leave me. I am the shadow clinging to the light of your freedom. His gaze was firm. So be free, but stay by my side until the day I allow you to leave. He picked up a letter, a questioning look on his face. You have a letter. Ophelia was startled. Who sent this to me? Jasmine Smith, who is that? She wondered. Opening the letter, she read it. Greetings, Duchess Vegan. This is the first time I'm sending a letter to your ladyship, so I am worried about being disrespectful. Yesterday, I was in a very awkward situation. Because I am not eloquent and have a shy personality, I couldn't join the others' conversations at the party. Therefore, I received quite a few stares from them, as I didn't know how to fit in with the atmosphere. This must be the girl who gave me her handkerchief yesterday, Ophelia thought. But thanks to your ladyship's help, I was able to escape that situation. So, the Countess didn't criticize me either. I sincerely thank you. Respectfully, Jasmine Smith. After reading, Ophelia said cheerfully, there it is. What is it? The Duke asked. She cheerfully replied, someone on my side. The weather is beautiful. My mood is good. This is a wonderful day to go see the Crown Prince. Ophelia strolled along, smiling and talking. Sylvester, you dare curse in front of me? She thought back to him mocking her. Who said no one would be on my side? If the Empress's letter is still in its place, then it seems the plot is still unfolding as planned. But there's no guarantee that things will continue to go according to plan in the future. With that, she boarded her carriage and headed straight for the Imperial Palace. So, even if it's just for a day, I have to act like the female lead. The scene changed to a different location. Inside a damp room, a plump woman was scolding. You useless thing, can't you even do laundry or clean properly? Kneeling at her feet was a young man who looked very pitiful. She continued, that's why orphans with nowhere to go are completely useless. The young man spoke up, I'm sorry. I'll clean it up right away. There, a child possessing the aura of a master swordsman was found. The royal family was overjoyed and praised the female lead's contributions. After that, the female lead's position was greatly strengthened. Back in Ophelia's carriage, she thought, I'll try to follow this detail. Only then can I score points with the Crown Prince. Her servant announced, Madam, we've arrived. Stepping out of the carriage, she was stunned by the magnificence and splendor of the Imperial Palace. Seeing it in daylight, its majesty is truly impressive. Ophelia thought, although the invitation failed, I'll announce myself before entering and emphasize that this is a very important matter. I'll show him. Suddenly, a voice interrupted her thoughts. The Crown Prince does not permit you to enter. It was the Crown Prince's guard. Ophelia wondered, why did I think Callian would let me in? Then please deliver this for me. If His Highness sees this, he'll let me in. She handed the Empress's letter to the guard. However, he only held it with 2 fingers. How irritating. So rude, standing right in front of me. He said, then please wait a moment. Ophelia replied, helplessly, fine, whatever. An hour passed, and still nothing. Ophelia sat waiting, completely dejected. At this rate, it'll be dark soon. Did he forget about me? She fumed, kicking her foot. Oh, my leg, she whined, propping it up. Suddenly, the guard approached at my sincerest apologies for the delay. I've kept you waiting. The Duchess, embarrassed, quickly stood and adjusted her clothes. I'm looked down on no matter what I do. This is so humiliating. She coughed a few times, then recomposed herself. All right, now can you show me to the reception room? No, he replied. I apologize, but you're not permitted to enter. Ophelia gaped, astonished. What? Why? Did you deliver it to the Crown Prince? Yes, I did. He confirmed. Did he read it? She pressed. The guard answered, yes, His Highness has read it. Then why? She thought he read the letter, but he still won't let me in. The guard spoke up. I will convey what His Highness has said. Get out. She was devastated, her spirits plummeting like a stone into an abyss. Even if he hates me, this is a bit much, isn't it? This is a letter from his mother. What's going on? She raged. How could he ask his subordinate to do this? And to memorize it and recite it to me like that? I worked so hard to get this. Now, someone's taken the letter, and it's gone. Ophelia burst into tears. This makes everything so much harder. I thought using the letter to smooth things over with the Crown Prince was a great idea, and I haven't come up with anything else yet. But now it's failed. Distraught, she clutched her head. Should I go build an orphanage first? Do some charity work so he knows I've changed? Suddenly, a voice called out, Duchess Vezin Ophelia? Startled, Ophelia wiped her tears and looked up at the speaker. The girl continued, it really is you, madam. Ophelia recognized her as the kind-hearted, angelic character from the original story, Crown Prince Callian's benefactor, the magnificent Florence William. Ophelia was stunned. It's the heroine. Florence seemed a little flustered. Madam, was it rude of me to greet you first? Ophelia quickly responded, oh no, not at all. It's just that the sun is so bright, it hurts my eyes. I couldn't answer right away. Fleur brightened, no, that's good then. Ophelia reassured herself. I guess I'm just a little tense from running into her so unexpectedly. Actually, I'm extremely tense. In the original story, Ophelia had harassed Fleur numerous times, with increasing intensity. Ultimately, Ophelia's execution was a result of her relentless torment of Fleur, which enraged Callian. I mustn't forget that when I'm in front of Fleur, I'm the guilty one. If I want to survive, I have to keep that in mind. Ophelia asked Fleur, it's been a while. How have you been? Fleur humbly replied, thanks to Madame Ophelia, I've been well. And you, Ophelia? Ophelia responded cheerfully, I've been very healthy as well. Fleur seemed pleased, as expected. Madame is always so kind. I bullied and harassed her so much, and she still doesn't have any negative feelings towards me. This must be the heroine's halo. Fleur asked, but where are you going? Ophelia explained, actually, I was going to ask the Crown Prince for his opinion on something, but he refused to see me. Fleur's expression turned strange to, oh, I see. Ophelia suddenly felt uneasy. Did she just laugh at me? And then Fleur continued, saying she was on her way to see His Highness. If she met him, she would definitely tell him that she had seen Ophelia. Ophelia replied with a hesitant yes. Fleur bid her farewell and told Ophelia to be careful going home. Ophelia reassured herself, thinking it was probably just her mood. The smile on Fleur's face vanished as soon as Ophelia turned to leave. A carriage was traveling down the road. Ophelia pondered. She had clearly requested to see the Crown Prince, but had been refused. Fleur must have known that. Ophelia liked the Crown Prince, so why did Fleur say that? It was strange. It felt like Fleur was mocking her. Ophelia had a strange premonition. Ophelia suddenly laughed. Fleur was the kindest character in the original story. It must be because she was so kind. There was nothing malicious about it. But while reading the original story, there were times when Fleur's personality made Ophelia feel suffocated. It was slightly irritating. Also, Ophelia had a rather twisted personality, a trait that remained in this body, which was why she was thinking so negatively. Yes, it was best not to prejudge anything. Time would reveal the truth. Perhaps the discordant relationship between her and Fleur in the original story would take a more positive turn. Ophelia looked out the carriage window. Isn't that Sylvester? What's he doing here? Ophelia remembered leaving a small note before going out. But why did she draw hard on it? Was it from excessive excitement? But Ophelia had been kicked out and was in an extremely foul mood. Why did she write that? What if he was actually expecting her to succeed? Ophelia got out of the carriage and was met with Sylvester's displeased look. He immediately asked, "What did you do today?" Ophelia felt a chill down her spine and stammered, "I didn't do anything." Sylvester narrowed his eyes. "Don't lie. If you didn't do anything, then why did the crown prince send this letter here?" Ophelia snatched the paper. It demanded, "You and your wife are to come to the imperial palace to see the crown prince immediately. The crown prince will make her pay for daring to touch his woman." Ophelia was speechless. What nonsense is he talking about? Sylvester seemed to be thinking the same thing. "What on earth did you do to make the crown prince send a letter like this?" Ophelia said, "I didn't touch anyone. I just happened to meet the countess and exchange greetings. Believe it or not, I really didn't do anything." Sylvester said, "I understand, but first, let's go to the imperial palace." To the imperial palace. Ophelia trailed behind the duke. She touched his arm and said, "That guy earlier told me to get lost. He told me to get lost, and it seems like the crown prince ordered him to say it. How could he tell me to get lost like that? It's outrageous." The duke turned around. "Oh, what should we do?" Ophelia asked, "Aren't you angry that your one and only wife was insulted?" The duke asked, "Haven't you heard that a lot already? I thought you were used to it. Besides, you're quite the expert with your words yourself." Ophelia was surprised. "What are you talking about?" The duke continued, "Didn't you tell Duchess Fennin before that she looked like a grain of uncooked rice? And even if she brought it close to your mouth, you wouldn't even eat it, or what?" Such creative insults. Ophelia widened her eyes hesitantly. She was determined to find the Duchess Fennin later and apologize. Sylvester immediately replied, "Apologize for what?" "For saying she looks like a grain of rice." Ophelia wanted to apologize for causing trouble. Whether or not Duchess Fennin forgave her was up to her. This was the only way to quell the rumors about her. Sylvester turned back to look at Ophelia. "Aren't you embarrassed? A simple apology won't make these rumors disappear. To live a peaceful life after the divorce, you need to become a better person. You should live in seclusion for several years somewhere quiet. Just go somewhere peaceful and live a tranquil life. Buy a small mansion, live comfortably, and cultivate a small garden. Live with the things you love. Just imagining it makes me happy." Sylvester asked, "Do you really need to quiet the rumors? Wouldn't it be better if you were more famous?" Ophelia asked why. "The more wicked things I do, the more comfortable the duke is." Sylvester scoffed. Let me see, how should I put this?" The duke told her to think about it. Ophelia stood still. That blasted man was hateful from beginning to end. Sylvester walked over to the man and slapped him. Ophelia, standing behind him, was stunned. Sylvester declared, "I heard you insulted his grace's wife. There won't be a second time. You know that." Sylvester turned to Ophelia. "Let's go inside." Ophelia pondered. She thought that since she was only a duchess in name, he would prioritize protecting the duke's reputation. Although he didn't seem to care much about her behavior, in moments like these, he looked like a villain. The most powerful figure in the country, the head of the pro-nobility faction. Because of the immense power Sylvester wielded, no one dared to criticize his actions. Only one person did, Callian. An image flashed in her mind, Callian and Fleur. What was this situation? Ophelia stood before them. Callian saw her and immediately questioned her sharply. "I ordered you not to speak to Fleur, didn't I?" Ophelia was startled. "What? Is the Countess crying because I greeted her today?" Ophelia blurted out. "She started the conversation. I just responded, and we ended it right there. Why are things like this? I didn't do anything." Fleur burst into tears. "It's so scary." She kept apologizing to Ophelia and begging for forgiveness. Ophelia was bewildered. "What is going on? Now you're yelling at me. Can't you stop with that expression?" Ophelia was annoyed. "First, you tell me to get lost. Now you tell me to change my expression? Who gave you the right to criticize my face? I was born with it." Callian angrily called out. "Ophelia, rise in. If you don't apologize right now, I'll hold you responsible for this. Your family won't be safe either." Ophelia felt like screaming. He was dragging her family into this. It wasn't fair. She and Fleur had just talked, a brief exchange, and then gone her separate ways. She wanted to argue back, but doing so would only further anger Callian. The letter had become useless, but she still needed to maintain a peaceful relationship with him. Ophelia clenched her fists. She would endure it. People always said, "Endure 3 times and you'll escape death." Ophelia bowed, saying she had been disrespectful to the Countess. Suddenly, Sylvester appeared from somewhere and covered her mouth. He wondered what Ophelia had done wrong to warrant this. Besides greeting the Countess, she hadn't done anything. She raised her voice. "The Duke hasn't apologized on behalf of his wife. And now you're saying Ophelia isn't at fault?" Ophelia was surprised. "Good heavens, this man is actually taking my side." Sylvester continued, "If my wife is at fault, the fault likely lies with that scary face." Ophelia froze. "That is, he's shielding me while simultaneously attacking me. The Duke said, even if her face is scary, I don't understand why your highness is making her do this. Even if they were just greeting each other, isn't your highness's behavior rather strange? Callian interrupted, are you done, Duke? Sylvester said, not yet. Even if Ophelia did cause trouble for the Countess, it's absurd for Callian to summon both of us here and get angry. At the very least, your highness should leave me out of this. Ophelia was exasperated. Is he actually going to defend me or not? Sylvester turned back. That I am defending her because I trust my wife. Ophelia frowned. He thinks so, but I don't. She wanted to say something, but Callian's gaze was terrifying. However, Callian yelled, I clearly ordered Ophelia not to speak to Fleur again, but she dared to defy the Crown Prince's orders. That alone is enough to punish her. Sylvester hesitated. But there's no law against greeting someone. Callian retorted, with what Ophelia did to the Countess, that punishment is too lenient. Sylvester smirked. That I don't know about that. But would Ophelia even be convicted for doing that to the Countess? Both Ophelia and Callian froze. The truth was he was right. Ophelia had never been convicted, not even once. Due to Duke Raisin's immense power, he had transcended the law. Callian scoffed, understanding. So that's how it is. Don't you think you're going too far, Duke? Sylvester pondered. Let me see. If my defending my wife is going too far, then isn't your highness's anger, just to appease the Countess, who is already married, going even further? Fleur was shocked, tears streaming down her face. How could you say such a thing? Then she ran off. Ophelia thought, looks like the Countess was hit where it hurts. And Sylvester was just stating the truth. Currently, Fleur was separated from her husband, which was why she frequently met with Callian. And then their love would deepen. But to ask if that love was beautiful? Absolutely not. After all, she was married. Callian gritted his teeth in anger. This time, I won't let this go. Ophelia was surprised. Me too. Then Callian ran after Fleur. Ophelia was still confused. What the heck? I only bowed to him today. Compared to that, Sylvester looks very relaxed. The Duke smoothed his hair, replying handsomely, I still feel a bit lacking. It was so difficult. Callie had to personally invite her here. Yet, she's blinded by love, and Callian is still chasing after her. Fleur is crying and shouting her name. He ran and grabbed the Countess's hand, swearing he wouldn't let them get away with it. His anger was boiling. It had been building since Fleur came running to him in tears. No, actually, it started this morning when Ophelia delivered the letter to Callian. It was the first letter he'd received from his mother. It even had her signature on it. There was no doubt the letter was real. His emotions surged, but to the point of discomfort. Fleur tearfully called out to His Highness Callian, comforting him. Even if he was insulted like that, it was all right. Fleur wanted to understand Callian. She didn't want His Highness to suffer because of her. Callian caressed Fleur's face. Silly, those harsh words were directed at you. How can it be all right? You're the woman who saved His Highness from death. You selflessly cared for him, always with that innocent smile. How could I not love you? Callian boldly declared, I won't let those who trample on Fleur's gentle heart get away with it. Fleur placed her hand on his chest. She urged him not to do anything rash, as Duke Raisin was the head of the nobles. If His Highness confronted him, it would be dangerous. Callian was touched that the Countess, despite being hurt, was still worried about him. How could she be so adorable? Callian embraced Fleur tightly to express his affection. Sylvester and Ophelia were on their way back. They both felt tired. The Crown Prince had naturally said those hateful things and left, leaving Ophelia lost in thought. Sylvester agreed. The Crown Prince is like some villain in a back alley. But why didn't she do anything? If Ophelia felt wronged, she should have argued back. She should have flown into a rage and made the Crown Prince give up. Ophelia was indeed angry. The Duke had told her to seduce the Crown Prince, so she was trying hard to suppress her anger. Isn't the Duke the one trying to act tough? Everything got worse because of that. That's why the Crown Prince is angry. Sylvester had said it before. The more he acts like he cares about you, the more the Crown Prince gets provoked and pays attention to you. Ophelia hesitantly asked, then why did the Duke treat that servant like that? Sylvester explained, that's probably because he found the servant annoying, and also because he's the Crown Prince's aide. Ophelia frowned, incredulous. How can the Duke be so unreasonable? She looked out the carriage window. Look, Aurora flowers. Suddenly, memories from before she transmigrated into the book flooded her mind. Every day, Ophelia lay in her hospital bed, constantly afraid, not knowing when death would come. Even breathing was difficult. Despite that, she prayed every day for a chance to live. Miraculously, she was now experiencing everything, including breathing freely. It's so good to be healthy. So she definitely wouldn't give up. Ophelia would follow Fleur's example to seduce the Crown Prince. Then, she would divorce Sylvester and live a happy life. The Duke then teased her, what's with that pose? Ophelia snapped out of her daydream. Ophelia stammered. It's because the crown prince made me lose my composure today. So, she was just regaining her composure. Do well. Sylvester asked her what she meant by do well. Seduce the crown prince? Ophelia replied, that's right. It wasn't the duke who told me I had to do this to get a divorce. Sylvester looked impressed that she's certainly diligent, but who knows if she'll succeed. Ophelia asked, is he provoking me? Sylvester narrowed his eyes. Why have you changed so much? Even the way you talk to me. Ophelia replied, it's not me. He's the one who hates it. Her hand gripped her dress tightly. After that happened, the Duke increasingly. He understood, but it's clear you hate him too. It could be said that both sides feel the same, but it doesn't matter. You won't ask why Ophelia has changed so much. Instead, let's make him even happier. Ophelia's eyes widened. Sylvester's gaze, just now, that was like a child eager to receive their first gift. Did he see her as a living toy? Should she trust this warmth? Or was he gradually looking at her with kinder eyes? And Ophelia, sitting on the edge of the bed like she's writing something? How tiring. It had been a few days since Fleur's attempt to frame her. Callian had said to wait, but now he was silent. Even for the crown prince, going after Duke Vezin was a bit much. Anyway, while Callian was keeping quiet, she had prepared thoroughly to be able to act like Fleur in the original story. The day to begin had arrived, establishing the orphanage. Ophelia felt a little guilty, like she was stealing Fleur's idea, but this wasn't the time for guilt. When did Fleur become this kind of person? Was Ophelia like this in the original story? This was Ophelia's current world, so she needed to understand the person named Fleur, not as a character. She couldn't let these wandering thoughts influence and waver her resolve. She had to focus on what needed to be done. Ophelia and the Duke were sitting at the dining table. A servant came and asked him if he needed anything else. Ophelia snapped back to reality. This was the moment. Just as she voiced, I love, Sylvester interrupted, no? Ophelia froze. He hadn't even heard her yet. Sylvester held a teacup in his hand. The things you do amuse me, but they're strange. No matter what you say, I'll refuse. So no, Ophelia fumed. That Duke was something else. He was the one who told her to make him happier. She exclaimed, do you think I can't do it myself? Sylvester retorted, do you have the money? Ophelia changed her tone. First, Duke, please listen to me. This is actually a very good thing. Sylvester sighed. Fine, go ahead. Ophelia moved closer to the Duke. I want to build an orphanage. Sylvester was surprised. Where? I want to build it in the slums. Ophelia sat back down. Duke Raisin, haven't bad deeds always been more notorious than good ones? You might not feel it now, but as time goes by, it won't be good at all. So, don't you need to do some genuinely good deeds? Sylvester asked, did you get struck by lightning? How can you even think of such things? Ophelia frowned that don't say such things in front of her. You'll get scolded, and you'll have to deal with it yourself. The Duke plans to keep relying on her villainous image forever. That method is so outdated. Ophelia rested her chin in her hand and said, Sylvester, think about it. He's the one who caused so much evil behind the bad things she's done. So why doesn't the Duke try something new? Pretend to be a good person, then secretly cause trouble. What do you think? Sylvester's eyes widened. Then he burst out laughing. All right, he said, I'll allow you to do whatever you want. Ophelia beamed and thanked him. I'll definitely build it big and expensive. It's not my money anyway. The secretary suddenly ran into the dining room. The Duke asked in surprise, what is it? He just received a summons from a court. It seems to be blackmail, threats of violence, and both of you are being sued. They both turned to look at Ophelia. She looked back at them, confused. Sylvester held the papers. Ha. This is interesting. Ophelia clutched her head, tears welling in her eyes. That I'm being sued, and you can laugh like that. Sylvester looked at the papers. Yes, that's right. But what should we do now? Who knows? Ophelia looked at the Duke. She had expected him to say something like he would help her solve the problem or something. Sylvester appeared indifferent that you're the one being sued, so you have to solve your own problems. Ophelia felt a little resentful. Don't be like that. You have to help me do something. Sylvester stroked his chin that I was just kidding. You have such varied expressions, so I wanted to have some fun. Ophelia was angry that if you keep joking like that, I'll leave home. The Duke said, I'll hire you a competent lawyer, so at worst, you'll just be fined, and I'll hang these papers up. Ophelia relented slightly. Well, all right, that's better than other punishments. She suddenly realized something. Wait a minute, has any noble ever been fined before? Sylvester replied, no, nobles always prioritize their honor, so they'll try to cover it up somehow. I'll congratulate you in advance, since you're the first noble to receive this punishment. No, Ophelia gasped, no, I just said I would build an orphanage, and I initially intended to promote a good image. But if I become the first noble to be fined, what's the point of promoting it? I must cancel this lawsuit. I have to use my trump card. The palace doors opened. Duchess Raisin had arrived. Ophelia entered with a confident air. The maids were all waiting for her. They were clearly treating her differently. It was truly the power of the letter with the Raisin family seal. Although the process of obtaining the seal was quite humbling. Today, as Ophelia approached the door to the room, she immediately recognized the young man from before. He immediately invited her in. His attitude was completely different. He must be terrified of Sylvester. Ophelia entered the room. It looked quite simple. Usually, a reception room is considered the face of the homeowner. To put it nicely, this place was quite simple. To be blunt, there was nothing here. And as soon as Ophelia touched the table, her hand was covered in dust. Could this be Fleur's doing? It's certainly possible. Unlike other nobles, Fleur lives a very simple, frugal life, completely devoid of luxury. But is it all an act? A stark contrast to other nobles. Is it to project an image of harmlessness and virtue? Callian entered the room. Today was supposed to be a lucky day, but now he had to look at her disgusting face again. Ophelia greeted him. "Greetings, Your Highness." That shameless woman. Fine, let it be. She still had one last resort. "Callian," she breathed as he passed. "It's been a while. But if you're here to drop the lawsuit, you'd better leave." Ophelia turned around. What should she do? She really was here for that. Callian glared that I won't say it again. I have no intention of dropping the lawsuit. Even if the sky falls, I won't. Yes, Ophelia stammered. "Your Highness doesn't need to emphasize it so much." She sighed sadly. "I even gave Your Highness the letter from the former Empress." Callian spilled his tea and scowled. "How did you find it?" "After receiving the letter from you, I had people investigate the route, but there was no trace." Ophelia stared. So that's why he'd been silent all this time. He was investigating the letter. Callian narrowed his eyes at her. "Where did you find it, and how did you steal it?" Ophelia smiled faintly and sighed. "Your Highness assumes I stole it." "Huh? Mama, I simply found a way. And you think I'll tell you that easily?" Callian clenched his fist. Ophelia continued calmly. "Besides, it's just a piece of paper. Actually, there's another letter. I didn't bring it with me, but if Your Highness withdraws the lawsuit, I'll give it to you." Callian sneered. How could he trust her and withdraw the lawsuit? The letter might not even be real. Ophelia said, "It seems Your Highness finds it very hard to trust me. Then let's just pretend there's no letter." Callian turned his back and sat at his desk. "Then how about this? How about house arrest? On the condition that you won't step foot outside your house for a month, I'll withdraw the lawsuit." Callian laid out his terms. If she didn't agree, he wouldn't budge. After all, you don't want to get involved with the law. This agreement is fair, isn't it? Yes, Ophelia mused that I suppose so. "Then Your Highness must keep my house arrest a secret." Callian asked why. "Even if I'm not legally implicated, if people find out the royal family punished me, they'll start gossiping." Callian frowned. "Since when did you care so much about your reputation?" Ophelia's eyes widened. "You sound just like Sylvester." Callian sighed. "Fine, I'll keep it a secret." Ophelia smiled in satisfaction. "Thank you, Your Highness. Then you'll receive the letter in a month, right?" Callian yelled, "What?" Ophelia clutched herself dramatically. "I can't leave the house because of someone's house arrest order." "Oh, woe is me." Callian scowled in annoyance. "How dare you play games with me?" Ophelia stood up, feeling quite pleased with herself as she watched his expression. Ophelia turned to leave, but then paused. If she just left like this, wouldn't Callian hate her even more? Pushing him too hard wouldn't be good. But just as Ophelia reached the door, she spoke, though her tone was casual. She had one more piece of good news for the Crown Prince. "Actually, there's another letter." Callian's eyes widened. How could she possibly? Where was his mother's letter? How did she know so much? Ophelia calmly replied, "Because she told me to give it to Your Highness later. Empress Margaret herself said so." Ophelia curtsied to the Crown Prince and turned to leave. "I'll see you again in a month." Callie stood up, wondering how this could be. How could his mother entrust something to such a vile woman? Sylvester placed a hand on his chest. "My lovely wife," he said, "the mere sight of you is a pain." The Duke leaned closer, whispering in her ear. Ophelia ran to the Crown Prince, and she seems rather pleased to be sentenced to house arrest. Ophelia replied, "Well, thanks to that, the Crown Prince withdrew the lawsuit. What's more, he promised to keep it a secret." Ophelia panicked slightly. Anyone could see she was under house arrest. What was she supposed to do? Sylvester retorted, "That's precisely the problem. The Duchess Regent, submitting to the Crown Prince? Obeying a court ruling and obeying the Crown Prince's orders are two entirely different things." The Duke's tension was evident. This is definitely going to be troublesome. I need to tell New to prepare. Ophelia remained silent. She had truly done her best. How much more civil did he expect her to be? Sylvester sighed, exasperated. Now we have to salvage the situation. It's not the end of the world. "So, what do you plan to do during your month of confinement?" Ophelia frowned. "Why should I stay home? There's so much to do. Research the construction site, analyze current trends, then find out what children like. If I do all that, a month will fly by." Sylvester was pleased with Ophelia's thinking. It was exactly what he had in mind. From now on, just act like this as the mistress of the Vizin family. Ophelia clicked her tongue. Act like what exactly? The Duke replied, live your own way. Whether it's me or the Crown Prince, don't listen to anyone. Live as you wish. We only live once. Ophelia felt a spark ignite within her. The Duke wasn't saying this for the family's honor, but because he knew she disliked being constrained. Are you? Sylvester looked at her. What's wrong? Are you unwell? Ophelia gave a strained smile. Oh, it's nothing. I'm just a little scared. Following her own desires wasn't easy. Although his words made her happy, she was afraid it was all a dream. She feared that when she opened her eyes, she'd be back in the hospital. The uncertainty made her uneasy. Sylvester stood and placed his hands on Ophelia's shoulders. What are you afraid of? No matter what anyone says, you're the Duchess of Raisin. No one can harm you. Just remember that. The Duke's words and actions seemed gentler than ever, but deep down, it was all for his own benefit. A plan to exploit her completely. Regardless of the Duke's intentions, Ophelia was determined to live as Sylvester had encouraged. Filled with renewed energy, she began the first steps of her plan to build an orphanage. The first day of house arrest. Yet, she had already caused a serious incident. On the main street, bustling with people coming and going, Irene lowered her head, her face filled with fear and disbelief. How did she and the Duchess end up outside together? Meanwhile, Ophelia cheerfully stopped by a stall, exclaiming, wow, this looks delicious. The vendor enthusiastically offered, let me get you some. Irene grew even more suspicious. Lately, the Duchess had been acting very strangely. Irene suddenly remembered a time in the past. A piercing scream echoed through the castle. Furniture shattered. The Ophelia of the past screamed, what is this? What should I do? Why is it so painful? Then, another loud roar followed. I'll kill you, you woman. Irene, terrified, cowered. The servants nearby timidly asked her, what should we do? The Duchess has lost her mind again. They trembled with fear, only daring to whisper amongst themselves. How terrifying. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted for Irene. Where are you? Get in here. Irene jumped in fright. She quickly opened the door and entered, hesitantly saying, the Duchess, you called for me? Before Irene could finish her sentence, a vase was hurled at her, hitting her directly on the head. Irene cried out in pain, blood gushing out. She slumped down, clutching her forehead and sobbing. Ophelia, with disheveled hair, approached, her eyes wide with a cruel glint. She said coldly, do you despise me too? Why, brother? Ophelia's eyes were icy, staring intently at Irene. The gaze made Irene extremely tense. Panicked, Irene hastily knelt and kowtowed, pleading, please spare me. I don't, Duchess. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Her blood-stained hands trembled uncontrollably as she continued to beg, please forgive me. Irene thought to herself, she used to be like this. But then, a voice called out, Irene. Irene was pulled back to reality, startled awake. It was Ophelia calling Irene. She held out a tangerine, smiling gently. Here, have this. Irene was stunned, speechless. Now, she was so flustered she almost burst into tears. Irene screamed internally, smiling, and treating me like this is even more frightening. Ophelia strolled leisurely down the street, observing the surrounding architecture. Some of these buildings are quite nice. I wonder if we're too close to the capital's center. But then she thought, I should probably find that child first. That would be better. Ophelia racked her brain. What was his name again? She sorted through her 15-year-old memories. Someone with the aura of a master swordsman, who later grew up to become the hero of the empire. She clearly remembered in the original story, when Fleur saw the boy stealing bread, she decided to build an orphanage. Ophelia crossed her arms in thought. I'd like to have a chance encounter like that too. But as a villain, how can I be like the protagonist? Well, she thought, that's why I'm thinking of building an orphanage so he can find his way there. Ophelia muttered, if I build an orphanage nearby. Irene, walking behind her, overheard and jumped, blurting out, why yes, my lady. Ophelia looked at her, puzzled. Why are you so surprised? I was just talking to myself. Irene stammered, oh, is that so? She trembled, forcing a smile. If there's an orphanage, it would be really wonderful. Also, Irene trembled, stammering, I apologize. I'm not very knowledgeable about these things, so I don't know what else to say. Ophelia, seeing her strong reaction, thought to herself, I was just talking to myself. Why is she so stiff? She paused, suddenly remembering something. Ophelia realized she's still afraid of me. Afraid I'll hit her, even now. She spoke, Irene, although it's a bit late, I still want to apologize to you. Irene looked up. Ophelia smiled gently, extending her pinky finger and saying, from now on, there won't be any more instances where I hurt you because of my mood. She held out her hand, her voice soft. Come on, promise. Irene, stunned, stammered, but madam. Ophelia, smiling, asked, what is it? But then she heard Irene ask suspiciously, where does it hurt? Ophelia froze, her face going blank. Seeing her silence, Irene panicked, hurriedly saying, please forgive me, but I'm being honest. I'm saying this because I'm very worried about you. Question marks filled Ophelia's mind. Good heavens, Irene anxiously explained. Ever since the day you came into the mansion soaking wet, you've started to change. Panicking, Irene used all her courage to blurt out, You're even scarier than before. Ophelia froze, wondering, scarier? Is she really saying all this out loud? Irene's next words made Ophelia jump, that it's like you're a different person. For example, when you call for the designers, you chose such simple clothes. And then there's the matter of building the orphanage. Irene suddenly thought of a possibility, as if she had discovered something earth-shattering. She stammered, Don't tell me you have some kind of terminal illness. Ophelia, exasperated, retorted, That's not it. Flustered, she tried to explain and reassure Irene that I've just had a change of heart. From now on, I'll live properly. Of course, there's still a long way to go. Irene hesitantly replied, But then, with a look of apprehension, she continued, Before you used to eat, dress, and act like Dutch's floor. So I don't know if you really think that way now. Ophelia was speechless. She's this wary of me? Resigned. She thought, well, there's no other way. She raised her hand. Seeing this, Irene instinctively flinched, her eyes welling up as she cried out, But the expected blow didn't come. Ophelia gently stroked her head, her voice soft. It's my fault that you don't trust me. She reached out and retied the ribbon on Irene's cloak. Ophelia calmly continued, But this time, I'm telling the truth. Not just to you, but from now on, I won't treat anyone carelessly. Irene stared down at the bow Ophelia had tied for her, listening as she added, I'll stake my name and the honor of the Raisin family on this promise. Hearing this, Irene pursed her lips and lowered her head without replying. Having said all she wanted to say, Ophelia continued excitedly. All right, then let's go. I was planning on visiting a few places today. Strolling around, Ophelia sighed inwardly. This is harder than I thought. If only the novel had illustrations. She adjusted her hood, glancing around and reminding herself, plus, I'm under house arrest, so I have to cover my face as much as possible. It'll be trouble if anyone recognizes me. Just then, Irene rushed up to her, struggling to say, Madam, come with me. Suddenly, she tripped over someone's foot in the crowd and cried out in alarm. Irene fell into the street, her hood falling back. She grimaced in pain. A scream pierced the air. Irene's eyes widened. The crowd murmured and gasped, Oh my goodness. What should we do? Ophelia, hearing the commotion, looked over. She gasped in horror. Irene. Several horses had gone mad and were galloping straight towards Irene, who tumbled to the ground. People shouted, Run! Get out of the way! But Irene was frozen in fear. A figure darted through the crowd, heading straight into the street. Ophelia's eyes widened in astonishment as she focused on the figure. Descriptive words flashed through her mind. Green hair. A child of about 15. The one who would become the hero of the empire in the future. Ophelia immediately connected the figure to that character. Theo. He was running towards the out-of-control horses as they galloped closer and closer. Irene knew she couldn't dodge in time. Instinctively, she raised her arms to protect herself, sobbing and crying out. The young man's footsteps pounded the ground as he drew nearer. He lunged forward, scooping Irene into his arms just in time and rolling with her to the side of the road. Irene rubbed her forehead with a small cry of pain. Theo quickly said, I'm so sorry. I pulled you rather hard. He pushed himself up, looking down at her with concern. Are you hurt anywhere? Theo's handsome features left Irene speechless. Her heart pounded, and her cheeks flushed crimson. She stammered, Why yes, well, thank you. Seeing that Irene was safe, Ophelia breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, thank goodness, Irene. She smiled excitedly at the figure beside Irene. And to think I'd run into Theo like this. Ophelia rushed over to them. Irene, are you all right? It's a good thing you're not hurt. Seeing Ophelia, Irene exclaimed, Oh, madam. Realizing her slip-up, she quickly covered her mouth, thinking, I mustn't call her madam. I mustn't call her madam. Ophelia smiled at the young man beside her. Thank you so much. Looking down, she noticed a bleeding scrape on Theo's knee. Oh dear, that wound. Ophelia's mind raced. Blood. Is the bone all right? Seeing her panicked expression, Theo quickly reassured her. It's nothing serious. Just a scrape. Ophelia pulled out a handkerchief. Bending down, she gently bandaged his knee. Even though it's just temporary, this will help stop the bleeding. Theo blushed, silent and embarrassed. Ophelia continued kindly. If you leave it like this, it'll definitely get infected, so you must get it treated. I'll cover the cost. Yes, he mumbled, his face still red. Seeing his reaction, Ophelia thought, he's so shy. Adorable. Then another thought struck her. But who owns that carriage? Driving so recklessly on a busy street. A moment later, the carriage door swung open, and a voice roared, Damn it. Having to stop the carriage mid-gallop made me fall. It was the noble. Ophelia and Theo watched as the man, ranting and raving, stepped down from the carriage. He glared, his face contorted in anger. You damn fools. Ophelia frowned, thinking so it's that brat. She slowly stood up and calmly said, shouldn't you check if anyone's injured first? The man snapped. What? Ophelia's brow furrowed as she continued sternly. There was almost a fatality. If you're a noble, act like one. Being publicly rebuked by Ophelia infuriated the man. He gritted his teeth. How dare this woman? How dare you speak to me like that? Ophelia turned to look at the crowd behind her and said, someone call the guards to arrest this man. The people heard her request, but no one answered. Instead, they turned away, avoiding her gaze. Ophelia was astonished. What's with this atmosphere? The man smugly stroked his hair and smirked. He waved his hand dismissively to How amusing. Do you not know who I am? He began his introduction. I am the second son of the Russ family, a family under Duke Raisin. Ibers Reese. Ibers grinned, baring his teeth, and continued his threat. If something like you dares to touch me, I will make sure you won't live to see another day. Hearing this, Ophelia froze, her eyes widening in surprise. A moment later, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. This time, it was Iber's turn to be utterly astonished. He was dumbfounded. He immediately asked, what? You dare laugh at me? Ophelia still couldn't stop laughing. Haha. She covered her mouth. Oh, I'm sorry. I just found it so funny. Ophelia laughed so hard tears streamed down her face. She raised a hand to wipe the tears. She calmly continued, it seems Duke Raisin has made quite a big mistake, hasn't he? Someone like you, holding a position of authority. The crowd behind them murmured in agreement that it's truly awful. A noble acting like this. He's famous for looking down on this area. Quiet down. He might hear you. Ibers, feeling increasingly ridiculed, clenched his fists in anger, thinking it's all ruined. He snapped, how dare you insult me? Theo and Iron looked up in alarm. Without another word, Ibers reached for his sword. He sneered, such impudence from someone of your low standing. Ophelia, sensing trouble, flinched. In the next moment, everyone saw Ibers viciously swing his sword down towards Theo. He snarled, you should have died under the carriage wheels from the start. A thud sounded and blood splattered. But it wasn't Theo who was injured. He stared blankly at the person who had taken a blow for him. Bright white hair flowed and fluttered in the wind. Ophelia stood shielding Theo and Iron. Her cloak had fallen, revealing a bleeding gash on her arm. Seeing this, Iron cried out in alarm, Madam. Madam! Ibers clearly saw the face of the person before him. He too was startled. His emerald eyes widened. Fragments of past memories flashed before him. Ibers was shocked. This person is... He suddenly remembered. He had met her a long time ago. The woman from that day in his memories. Ophelia Raisin. Her shimmering silver hair and emerald eyes. Ibers had a deep impression of her. Her beauty was like that of a goddess. The cruelty deep within her could overpower anyone. Ibers panicked. The bloody dagger fell from his hand. He collapsed to his knees, his face filled with terror. His voice trembled. Do Duchess. Ophelia let out a breath. Well, that's taken care of, more or less. Iron fussed worriedly, Madam. That wound is deep, but Ophelia didn't seem concerned. She turned to Theo and asked, are you hurt anywhere else? He stammered, no, Madam. I'm sorry. His reaction made her chuckle. She said softly, why apologize? You should be thanking me. And you're just like me. If you can save a life with just a scratch, it's nothing. Ophelia's words struck a chord within Theo. He blushed and froze. He could hear his own heart pounding erratically. He understood. If this person could frighten that nobleman so badly he turned pale, then she was certainly someone to be feared as well. The moment seemed to freeze as Theo reassured himself. But in his eyes, this person was like an angel. A moment later, the street returned to its previous state. It was as if the commotion had ended right there. Back at the mansion, a problem arose that Ophelia hadn't anticipated. Sylvester frowned and said, this is different from what you said. He continued, his voice laced with displeasure. Did you do this on purpose? Ophelia was dumbfounded, not understanding what was happening. She really couldn't understand. What was this person's problem? Back on the street, it was late afternoon. The golden sunlight bathed the scene. Ophelia cradled her bandaged arm, thinking to herself, now that this is over, I have a terrible headache. Iron, following behind her, was still worried. Madam, are you truly all right? Ophelia replied, I'm fine. You don't need to worry. Iron hesitated, then hesitantly said, I was so surprised that Madam would throw herself in harm's way like that for someone else. These words struck a chord with Ophelia. She thought to herself, it's because that someone else was Theo. Suddenly, the person behind her stopped. Ophelia looked back in surprise. Iron lowered her head and slowly said, that's why I feel it's such a shame. If we go back now, it'll be as if nothing happened today. Ophelia understood what she meant. Her mood sank. That's right, because I've been confined by the Crown Prince. She thought to herself, if this gets out, it'll definitely become a big deal. That's why I asked the people there. Ophelia recalled how she had sternly warned the crowd, if anyone dares to reveal what happened today, I will curse their entire family. Thinking back on it now, Ophelia felt that it wasn't really a request, but more of a threat. Irene clutched her skirt, gathering the courage to speak. The promise Madam made was really hard for me to believe. But now I think differently. She smiled brightly and cheerfully said, perhaps Madam has truly changed. Yet, seeing Irene's reaction, Ophelia couldn't bring herself to be happy. She froze, clenching her fist, thinking, my conscience is really bothering me. Ophelia fell into turmoil, questioning herself. Could such calculated and deliberate actions truly receive such pure praise? Then Ophelia suddenly thought, but if her fear of me disappears, she mused, then I probably don't need to explain anything else, right? With that thought, she smiled and said, thank you. Irene's cheeks flushed, further solidifying her belief in her judgment. Well then, Ophelia said, let's hurry back before it gets dark. Irene immediately replied, yes, madam. At Duke Raisin's mansion, a piercing scream echoed. Look, newspapers and transcripts clearly reported, Ophelia Raisin has become a hero after rushing to save a child. This information has been confirmed by the testimonies of everyone at the scene. Ophelia Raisin is clearing her name and turning her life around. Ophelia, after reading all this news, clutched her head and groaned. Who on earth was it? I asked everyone not to reveal anything. She was so frustrated she wanted to cry, thinking, damn it, should I go find that person and actually curse them? Why blame them? It's my fault for bumping into them. And Ophelia earnestly pleaded, please call Ion, just let it go. At that moment, applause rang out. Then Sylvester entered, clapping and laughing, caught red-handed the moment you stepped out of the house. A round of applause for Ophelia Raisin, making headlines. Ophelia flinched, annoyed, and retorted, are you adding fuel to the fire? Sylvester replied casually, not at all. This is merely an exclamation from the depths of my soul. He crossed his arms, feigning helplessness, and sighed. You were so confident you wouldn't be discovered. Truly remarkable. That's why I exclaimed. Ophelia, both irritated and embarrassed by his teasing, flushed, "A.S. if I wanted this." Then, Sylvester turned serious, glancing at her. S.O. He asked, whether someone else gets hurt or not has nothing to do with you. Ophelia, explain yourself. After a moment, she slowly replied, I didn't risk my life out of goodwill. My life is precious. I am Ophelia, she stated flatly, her expression calm. But that boy saved Irene. If Duke Sinister's servant and a child from the slums had died there, she continued, this article paints me in a bad light. If that's the case, my plans to establish an orphanage will be ruined. I am Ophelia. She justified herself. I only acted for the sake of my reputation. Sylvester listened to her explanation and chuckled that, yes, that's so? Lucky you. He casually remarked, if it were an act of goodwill, I'd be very disappointed in you. Yes. Ophelia, not understanding his meaning, questioned him. But Sylvester simply turned away, saying, no, you're still the same. Just like my wife. He put on his coat and headed for the door. Well, I'm going out. Keep up the good work, Ophelia. She frowned, muttering, normally, wouldn't you say the opposite? After Sylvester left, Ophelia breathed a sigh of relief. Good, I got through that. Turning back to the news, she thought, since I'm in the news anyway, I'll use it to my advantage. She called out to Irene. An invitation was laid out. Ophelia resolved, I'll become the face of the orphanage. Elsewhere, Ebert, bruised and battered, was thrown roughly against a wall. He cried out in pain. He looked fearfully at the man before him, Duke Sylvester. Sylvester coldly asked, you dare to injure my wife? Ebert, no longer arrogant, stammered, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have knelt the moment I saw her. But Sylvester, unmoved, continued in a chilling tone, why do you think I've remained silent all this time? He spoke indifferently. Was it because I knew nothing? Or because I knew and endured it? Sylvester slowly continued. Or was I looking for a reason to eliminate you? Ebert froze, his expression incredulous. Sylvester reflected. Reese is the most corrupt family there is. There's information they're involved in business dealings I've forbidden. He thought to himself, it's quite amusing, the money they've amassed. Even Sylvester found it laughable that they used it to curry favor with the crown prince. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that simply eliminating them was too good for them. Sylvester coldly decided, from now on, I'm cutting off all support to the Reese family. He looked indifferently at the man groveling at his feet and stated ruthlessly, and especially you. I will have you exiled, never to set foot in this empire again. Terrified, Ebert desperately pleaded. Duke, he crawled abjectly, clutching Sylvester's clothes, trembling and pleading, please wait a moment. Please have mercy on me. just once. Sylvester turned, grabbed Ebert's chin, and lifted him up. His eyes were terrifying, his face shadowed and grim. He said in a low voice, "I told you. You will pay the price." Ebert trembled, his pupils contracting. Pain shot through both sides of his face, but he couldn't utter a word. Tears streamed down his cheeks. A scream rang out, blood splattered. Sylvester murmured, "Remember to live a better life next time, even if you die." He stepped out of the cell, his hand covered in blood. He instructed his subordinate, "Deal with this, as I said." The frightened subordinate respectfully acknowledged, "Yes, my lord." Looking at the gruesome scene of Ebert inside, the subordinate felt a surge of anger and nausea. Sylvester walked away, muttering to himself, "Good things should become mine." He frowned, thinking, "And the things that have become mine can never be taken away." The image of Ophelia's happy smile appeared in his mind. Sylvester vowed silently, "No one can touch what's mine." Night fell. Sylvester remained preoccupied with this thought, determinedly telling himself, "Definitely." The next day, the sky was clear. Theo, neatly dressed, stared blankly at the scene before him. He exclaimed, "Whoa, it's so big." The entire mansion seemed to sparkle and shine. Theo couldn't believe his eyes. Could it all be real gold? He wondered, "I never thought I'd set foot in Duke Raisin's mansion." Several maids approached to assist Theo. "Let me take your luggage, sir." He shyly replied, "No need." Theo wondered, why would they call someone like me here? Just then, footsteps approached. A gentle voice called out, "You've arrived." Theo was stunned. It was Ophelia. She looked beautiful in her outfit today. She smiled and said, "I've been looking forward to seeing you." Theo was captivated by her beauty, blushing and speechless. The two stood facing each other. Ophelia softly called his name, Theo. On the table were displayed exquisite pastries, a feast for the eyes. Theo was mesmerized by them, staring for a long time. Ophelia casually introduced them. "I've prepared tea and some simple desserts for you. Please enjoy them until the meal is ready." She continued, "And be sure to tell me which desserts you like." Theo stammered, "Thank you. I'll enjoy them." Ophelia watched the shy teenager sample the pastries with a satisfied smile. She thought to herself, "He's like a little puppy. Just wait, Theo," she mused. "Later, I'll feed you and lull you to sleep. You'll enjoy this luxury until you're tired of it." She continued, "Try this one. It's made with fruit." Suddenly, someone entered. He looked at the scene before him and coldly asked, "What's going on here, you two?" Theo turned and saw Sylvester frowning at him, his voice laced with displeasure. "What are you doing?" Ophelia was surprised. "Husband, you're home earlier than I expected." Theo stood up awkwardly and greeted him, "Hello." Sylvester's expression remained disapproving. He pointed at Theo and asked Ophelia, "What does it matter if I'm early or late? And who is this?" Ophelia, exasperated, reminded him, "Don't call him this." She explained, "This is the boy who saved Iron from the runaway carriage. That's why I invited him here today." But Sylvester's face only grew darker. He glanced over at the person before him. Ophelia was still chattering away. "But you have to tell me first. What if you come home early today?" Ophelia continued, "Then we could greet him together. Besides, there are a few things I want to talk to you about." Sylvester glanced at the shabby clothes the boy was wearing. It seemed the more he looked, the more displeased he became with the teenager before him. His brow furrowed further. But Ophelia didn't notice this detail. She said cheerfully, "Anyway, now's the perfect time. Let's eat together." Sylvester turned his head away and replied, "I didn't say I agreed." Ophelia's enthusiasm was doused like a bucket of cold water. She froze for a few seconds. She blurted out in a daze, So you want me to kick him out of the dining room?" Sylvester expressed his dissatisfaction in a stern voice, that if it's about the meal, he can eat later. Why did he barge in here like that? Theo timidly lowered his head, listening to their conversation. He chuckled softly and said, "At least let me tidy up a bit." Ophelia only now realized what he meant. Before she could stop him, Sylvester continued, "How dare he sit and eat with his superiors dressed like that, slouching like that?" Hearing this, Theo realized Sylvester didn't have a favorable impression of him. He bit his lip, embarrassed, his face flushing red. Ophelia was flustered, unsure of how to handle the situation. "Why is this happening all of a sudden?" She apologized to Theo, "That I need to talk to my husband, so we can talk later." "Okay," she told herself. "I have to separate them before things get worse." "Yes," Theo replied dejectedly in a low voice, "I understand." Ophelia felt even more awkward. "What should I do?" "He's hurt." A maid led Theo out of the room. He thanked her, but Ophelia suddenly felt incredibly annoyed. "I tried so hard to gain his favor." She glared at the man in front of her, thinking, "But now my plan has completely fallen apart." Sylvester casually crossed his arms and clicked his tongue, "That you're causing a lot of trouble, aren't you?" Ophelia didn't understand. She raised her voice and asked, What did I do wrong?" Ophelia questioned him. "What's it to you? You just came back and embarrassed someone, making them a laughingstock." Sylvester replied softly, "You're talking strangely. You're the one who brought the child from the slums and sat him down to eat with us. I am Ophelia, she said firmly. But that child saved the life of a servant in the Duke's mansion, and it's also proof that I did a good deed. So being kind to that child doesn't hurt anything. Sylvester frowned, repeating, doesn't hurt anything. He stepped closer to her and asked, did you do this on purpose? Ophelia, apprehensive, stepped back and mumbled, W.H. Sylvester showed his impatience, frowning, you're taking this joke too far, Ophelia. Ophelia's head was full of question marks. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Then she heard him continue, this is more like a scam. Sylvester stared at her intently. Ophelia asked indignantly, what are you talking about? Sylvester was silent for a moment, then slowly uttered 2 words. Too old. He scowled and looked away, voicing his dissatisfaction. That child is too old. He continued, you should have been more specific. I thought it was a small child. Ophelia gaped, finally understanding. But I asked that it. She was speechless, retorting loudly. Just because the child is older than you thought, you're acting like this? What does it matter? Sylvester grimaced, correcting her. This isn't a child. He's a young man. He's almost an adult, isn't he? I wonder what the problem would be bringing him to the mansion. Sylvester sternly reminded her. Just let other people see and hear what they'll say. Ophelia honestly considered the future implications. She was glad she had taken him from the slums and cared for him so well. Theo smiled and said, thanks to Madam, I was able to become a master swordsman. After a moment of reflection, Ophelia innocently said, I did a good job. Praiseworthy. Sylvester was speechless. He sighed wearily. You're so clueless. You don't understand a thing. Ophelia stamped her foot in frustration. She retorted, if you have something to say, then say it clearly. Sylvester turned away dejectedly, saying, dinner's ready, isn't it? We'll eat in the room. The door slammed shut. Innocent Ophelia still didn't understand the problem. What's with all the fuss? What's the issue here? The more she thought, the more irritated she became. If he's not going to eat, then why did he come here? Outside, the trees were lush and green, the scenery fresh. A maid reported, Theo is in the living room, madam. Iron reported back, I've had him bathe and change clothes. Ophelia, while adjusting her hair, said, good work. Thank you. Yes, Ophelia asked Iron, so what do you think of him? Iron startled, replying, yes, you're asking me? That. Iron stammered, shy like a girl in love. He's, quite cute. If you were a little older. Ophelia was at a loss for words. I'm talking about his personality. Iron gave an awkward laugh. Personality, yes. I was talking about his personality too. Ophelia silently thought, love-struck, how scary. After a moment, Iron seriously considered. Perhaps because he has received a personal favor. I feel he's a bit naive and gentle. Moreover, he praises Madam a lot. Ophelia stiffened, asking in a low voice, he's naive for praising me? Her tone startled Iron. Out of habit, she quickly bowed her head in apology. No, madam. I apologize. I misspoke. Ophelia placed a hand on her shoulder and softly said no. Iron trembled, and Ophelia chuckled softly. You're so silly. Iron looked up at her in bewilderment. She didn't understand and asked again. Ophelia continued, isn't it all the more precious that he's like that? She slowly said, many people saw the boy from the slums get into the Raisin family carriage. Ophelia murmured, the child that Ophelia Raisin saved has set foot in the duchy. In other words, and she imagined the aftermath. Everyone is whispering, Ophelia actually went out of her way to save a child from the slums. And then everyone will spread the news in the papers. It's true. The more Ophelia thought about it, the more excited she became. This is the perfect opportunity to escape the villainous label. As dusk settled, Ophelia walked into a room with a cheerful smile. Theo, have you been waiting long? The young man before her, now changed into new clothes, turned toward her. Theo looked handsome and mature in his new attire. He smiled and replied, not at all, madam. I just finished as well. His fresh appearance surprised Ophelia. She thought to herself, it's just a bath and some nice clothes. Yet, she covered her mouth with a forced laugh. I was so surprised earlier. My husband said some rather unkind things. I apologize, Theo. Understandingly, Theo replied, it's all right, madam. He's right to react that way. But Ophelia smiled, about to continue, about what we were discussing earlier. At that moment, Theo suddenly interrupted her. He lowered his head, blushing and stammering. Madam, about that. Theo pulled out a small, old, but meticulously wrapped paper package. He bowed deeply, mustered his courage, and offered it to Ophelia. Please, accept this, he said resolutely. Ophelia, surprised, asked hesitantly, are you giving me a fruit? The scene shifts to a horse-drawn carriage. snow blankets everything outside. On a majestic and picturesque road, a suspension bridge spans a deep chasm, held together by sturdy ropes, covered in pristine white snow. Beside the bridge, a dark blue carriage, intricately decorated with gleaming metallic details, is moving along. The powerful horses are firmly harnessed, exuding a sense of steadfastness in the frigid air. In the distance, the white snow stretches out, embracing the entire landscape, with a pale gray sky seemingly merging with the gently falling snowflakes. The air is cold but vibrant, creating a scene both wild and peaceful. Inside the opulent carriage, Theo, an orphan boy, gazes towards the distant, radiant castle where the Duke resides. Throughout the journey to the mansion, at Ophelia's behest, Theo kept thinking about the rumors surrounding Ophelia that people had told him. He recalled a sharp voice echoing in an old, large house, that which is definitely plotting something. His former mistress had told him she'll lure you in and sacrifice you to summon demons. Otherwise, why would she bother protecting a useless thing like you? So don't get your hopes up. Now get to work, the cruel woman had yelled. Hearing her words, Theo pondered deeply, worried. Could it be true? Was she protecting him only to use him? Looking down at the wound the Duchess had carefully bandaged, he remained resolute. If that were true, he wished she would just sacrifice him already. After some time, he finally arrived at the Duke's castle. Stepping inside, he presented the Duchess with a small, old paper package. Surprising her, "Not a gift for me?" she asked. Hearing Ophelia's question, he stammered, "And no, it's not anything grand. I was just worried about your injury." Ophelia held the brown paper package in her hands. Inside were crushed herbs, fresh green leaves, and small white fragments, all neatly wrapped. "These are crushed herbs, aren't they?" Ophelia asked. "Did you make this yourself?" Theo nodded. "Yes, I didn't have money to buy any, so I made it myself." He feared Ophelia wouldn't like it and explained, "My apologies. Thinking about it now, you probably have plenty of medicines like this. Please throw it away. It is effective, but compared to the medicine here, it's a bit." Theo thought sadly to himself, "I acted so foolishly. How could I give something like crushed herbs to someone I respect?" Seeing no response from Ophelia, he looked at her and called, "Madam." Ophelia simply smiled and said, "But I like this more." The sunlight streaming through the windows seemed to dance on her beautiful, angelic face. Coupled with her gentle laugh, it was captivating. Ophelia expressed her gratitude. "You were so worried about me. Thank you." Looking at Ophelia's expression, Theo couldn't imagine. Who could have called her a witch? Touching his racing heart, he hoped that Madame would use his gift. "Am I an idiot? This hurts so bad," Ophelia thought, gritting her teeth. Afterward, the two sat at a tea table. Ophelia spoke. "So, let's get back to the main topic." She asked him, "Do you know exactly? Do you know why I called you to the mansion?" Theo replied, "No, ma'am." She explained her idea that I planned to build an orphanage. My outing last time was also to scout the surrounding area. If I decide to go through with it, I want you to be the face of the orphanage. Theo was incredibly surprised that "I can't, ma'am. I couldn't possibly do it. I'm useless and a glutton, so I can't do it." Ophelia mumbled, surprised. This hero had no confidence as a child. "Huh?" Ophelia said, "Don't worry about that." Taking his hand, comfortingly, "Why support alone is reason enough." Ophelia had a terrible headache after trying to persuade the boy in the hallway, but to no avail. He was incredibly stubborn. Normally, he would receive a hefty sum for this. Luckily, he said he'd stay for a few days to think it over. "I'll use that time to come up with another plan. Just you wait. I'll make it so Theo can't refuse." Ophelia declared resolutely, "Indeed." A voice called out, "Madam." Ophelia turned towards the voice. She saw the steward, panting as if something urgent had happened. She asked, "What is it? Why have you come to find me?" The steward exclaimed, "He's here." Confused, she asked who. Seeing her bewildered expression, the steward blurted out, "The Crown Prince. He's standing in the mansion grounds." Ophelia approached the Crown Prince. "That I'm quite surprised. Why didn't you contact me beforehand?" The Crown Prince frowned, glaring sharply at her. "What brings you here?" He threw a newspaper at her feet, shocking her. He then began to fume that everything's going according to your plan, isn't it? Ophelia, hearing his absurd words, wondered what plan. He said, "Pretending ignorance? How disgusting. So, how does it feel to achieve your goal?" "The Emperor has summoned you." Ophelia was stunned. "What?" The Emperor of the Windstar Empire, Kasinchi Windstar, had known Ophelia before. Not because of the bad rumors that had spread throughout the capital, but because Empress Margaret had cherished her. Even after Margaret's death, Ophelia continued her wicked deeds, then suddenly transformed into a completely different person, as the newspaper reported. The Emperor chuckled, stroking his caged parrot. "Regardless, a thorough investigation is necessary. Perhaps there will be some amusement soon." Back at the Duke's mansion, Sylvester was walking down the hallway when a servant called out, making him turn around. The servant approached him. "There you are. I've been looking for you." Sylvester asked, "What is it? Did Ophelia cause trouble again?" The maid stammered, "Well, the crown prince has arrived at the mansion and is with Madame." In the vast grounds of the Duke's mansion, Callian, with an interrogative tone and disdainful attitude, said, "I ordered you confined, yet you concealed your identity and went out. At this crucial moment, you revealed your face and name." His face contorted with disgust. "Your goal was to gain the people's trust, and for that to reach His Majesty's ears, wasn't it?" The crown prince accused Ophelia from the very beginning. "You were playing me for a fool." Ophelia was shocked by his accusations, but thought to herself, "Honestly, the Emperor summoning me isn't a bad thing. No, on the contrary, it's actually very good, because this is my chance to build a relationship with His Majesty. If His Majesty is on my side, I can avoid the ending from the original story. Maybe I can even distance myself from that fate even further." Ophelia wore a rather pleased expression. Delighted to have found a new solution, she rejoiced inwardly. This was a golden opportunity. Callian, seeing Ophelia smile, was utterly surprised. What was her face? Beautiful, yet so cunning, it startled him into accusation. That wicked smile. "As I thought, a terrifying woman." The setting sun shone directly on her face, making her expression appear even more malicious. Callian blurted out contemptuously, "You're enjoying this a little too early. You won't be able to see His Majesty, because I will stop you." Ophelia, hearing the words of this wretched crown prince, was utterly astonished. "No way," she blurted out. "Isn't anyone in the Empire allowed to meet His Majesty?" Callian immediately retorted, "To be precise, only those with good character and righteous deeds are granted an audience." He roared, "And you possess none of those qualities." Ophelia, hearing this, argued, "Your Highness, look, you brought the evidence of my good deed yourself." But Callian still didn't believe her. "You must have used some trick. This is enough." "Stop it, Ophelia." Startled by his baseless accusations, she exclaimed, "You think I risked the lives of a servant and a child in the slums to fabricate this story?" Hearing her seemingly innocent words, he gritted his teeth and yelled, "Yes." Hearing this, Ophelia was furious. She cursed this unreasonable and hateful man under her breath. She clenched her fists, telling herself to be patient. Her action was misinterpreted. He thought she was about to hit him. He glanced at her hands, taking Ophelia completely by surprise. He grabbed her trembling hand, enraged. I thought. Your true nature hasn't changed." Callian's face flushed with anger. "You dare raise a hand against me?" Callian's words shocked Ophelia. What? Could it be because she clenched her fists in anger that he thought she was going to hit him? No matter how ill-tempered she was, would she really hit the crown prince? As he interrogated her intensely, the bandage loosely wrapped around her arm suddenly came undone, revealing a long, vivid red scar on her delicate arm. Seeing the long scar, the crown prince was utterly taken aback. Callian released her hand and stepped back, gulping audibly. What is that wound?" Ophelia, seeing the crown prince's surprised expression, was extremely annoyed. "Your Highness saw it in the newspaper, didn't you?" Her words made the crown prince flinch, as he had just stepped on the newspaper in question. He shifted his foot, muttering to himself, "Ha, you're so dedicated. You even hurt yourself for this charade? It'll definitely leave a scar." Hearing this, Ophelia said, "So what if it leaves a scar?" Her words stunned the crown prince. She lifted her scarred arm, gently tracing the mark with her fingers. Each touch sent a tremor of pride through her. "This is a scar of glory, from when I saved that child." Ophelia shone with the aura of righteousness. She looked directly at the crown prince with sincerity. Just like that, Callian froze in place. Something stirred within his heart. Was it love or guilt over his words? It was neither. Looking into her sincere eyes, he was astonished. For Ophelia to say such things. Had she truly changed? Unable to believe his own thoughts, the crown prince covered his mouth, feeling nauseous and disgusted. No, it couldn't be. He feared that if he showed any weakness, she would surely exploit it and stab him in the back. Immediately, he couldn't bear to see his beloved oppressed. He couldn't let himself be fooled. This was for Fleur. He absolutely couldn't forgive Ophelia. Ophelia interrupted his turbulent thoughts. "Are you finished? Then I'll be going." The crown prince watched her turn to leave and called out, "Wait, we're not done. Why didn't you answer the letter I sent?" Ophelia looked surprised. "A letter?" The crown prince ran a hand through his hair in frustration. You deliberately threw it away, didn't you?" He stepped closer to Ophelia, warning her, "I'm warning you." He pointed a finger in her face, a gesture of disrespect and offense. "If you continue to ignore my words, don't even think about stepping foot outside this house." He yelled, his voice booming in a display of exaggerated masculinity. "If you dare violate this order one more time, I'll hold you accountable for all your sins and throw you in jail." Ophelia mirrored his gesture like a childish taunt, struggling. Oh, so scary. Ophelia sighed dramatically. I understand. I understand. I won't go outside anymore. Then, with nimble fingers, she hooked her pinky finger around his. Here's my promise. This unexpected action startled the crown prince. He jerked his hand away. Hey, don't casually touch me, Ophelia retorted sarcastically. Then what were you doing to me just now? My hand still hurts from someone suddenly grabbing it. Her words made the crown prince blush crimson. He shouted, Ophelia Raisin. Ophelia maintained an innocent expression, teasing. Yes, your highness? Did you call for me? Under the setting sun, the crown prince wanted to end the conversation, cut her off haughtily. Fine, I'm leaving. The gate suddenly swung open. Outside stood Sylvester, calling Ophelia's name. The crown prince scowled at the sight of him. Sylvester. Sylvester, seeing the crown prince's displeasure, said, Your Highness, what brings you here? You didn't announce your arrival. The crown prince replied, Do I need your permission to come here? Sylvester retorted, That's common courtesy. But your highness is not subject to such considerations. Sylvester's gaze turned. I see why. S.O. I'll overlook it this time. Overlook it. Callian chuckled arrogantly. I was just about to leave anyway. I've finished speaking with your wife. He bumped shoulders with Sylvester as he passed, a deliberate act of provocation. He then glanced back at Ophelia. Isn't that right? Ophelia Raisin? Ophelia, hearing her name, replied, Yes, we're finished. Callian paused, turning back slightly. The pinky swear lingered, a thin thread connecting them. With a finality in his voice, he said, Ophelia, don't you forget what you promised me. He turned and walked away, his back radiating a chilling aura. As he left, he called out coldly, I won't be so lenient next time. The slamming door left a heavy silence between Ophelia and Duke Sylvester. Duke Raisin stood pensively, watching Crown Prince Callian's retreating figure. Then he turned back to Ophelia. Ophelia. He called her name, his voice laced with affection and concern. Yes, she replied. Sylvester noticed a long scar on her arm. His eyes sharpened at your hurt. Why didn't you tell me? When did this happen? Ophelia didn't hide anything. When I saved Irene, she answered frankly. Her words sparked anger in the Duke. I told you not to risk your life for good intentions, but you went this far? What were you thinking? He scolded. Ophelia sighed, a mixture of frustration and resentment in her voice. I didn't have a choice. That man was wielding a knife. If I hadn't done anything, Theo would be dead. Sylvester sighed, exasperated by her stubbornness. His voice softened. Don't worry. I'll call a skilled doctor. Once it heals, there won't be any trace of the wound. His words stunned Ophelia. She gently pulled her arm from his grasp. No, there's no need, she said firmly. What? Sylvester asked, surprised. Looking directly into his eyes, Ophelia's face showed determination. There's no need to call a doctor, she repeated. She knew the wound wasn't deep, but it was quite large. If left to heal naturally, it would definitely leave a scar. While that might draw criticism, making her appear less ladylike, to her, this wound was proof. Proof that she had used her own body to save someone. She didn't want it to disappear. To her, it was evidence that she had lived strongly and diligently. Duke Raisin watched her intently, understanding dawning in his eyes. I see. So that's how it is. Ophelia, bewildered and unsure of his thoughts, simply nodded, yes. Sylvester's lips curved into a half-amused, half-teasing smile. That you're intentionally letting everyone see this scar, aren't you? Rushing to save a child in the slums without hesitation, even getting injured. You're doing this to flaunt your good deed, aren't you? Ophelia was speechless at his deduction, utterly surprised. What? Sylvester maintained his teasing demeanor. How bold. Beyond my expectations. Then he repeated, or should I call a doctor? Faced with his persistence, Ophelia shook her head. But what did you promise the crown prince? Sylvester asked curiously. Oh, that? Ophelia chuckled lightly. He told me not to go outside again. Hearing this, Duke Raisin asked, Are you actually going to obediently follow the crown prince's orders? Ophelia turned away, pouting. What else could I do? If I hadn't, my head would be rolling on the ground right now. Suddenly, an idea seemed to strike her. Come to think of it. Ophelia whirled around, her attitude changing completely. Rubbing her hands together, she asked in a sweet, coaxing voice, My dearest husband, do you remember what you promised me? Duke Raisin raised an eyebrow. Promised what? Ophelia looked like an angel, her beauty pure and radiant, captivating all who beheld her. Her shimmering platinum hair cascaded down like a moonlit waterfall, complementing her skin as white as the first snow of winter, creating an image of ethereal purity. Her sapphire eyes sparkled like precious gems, radiating sweetness and depth, as if they could see into the very soul of the person before her. Her smile, as radiant as the dawn, spread warmth and endless joy. Her demeanor exuded grace. She desired gold. Every time the crown prince sent a letter or came looking for her, he would give her money. Duke Ryzen, observing her words and expression, was taken aback by this adorable demand. "Are you asking for money now?" Ophelia's eyes sparkled with longing as she replied. "What do you mean asking? Of course I am. You have to give me money as promised." Sylvester could only sigh at her charming avarice. He joked, "You become a money grubber already." Then Duke Ryzen said, "All right, I'll pay you through new." Hearing mention of money, Ophelia's eyes lit up like stars. She said cheerfully, "Great, thanks. Is that all you want?" Duke Ryzen stroked his chin thoughtfully, then said, "Catching the Emperor's eye is a good thing, isn't it? If the Emperor summons you, be sure to tell me." Ophelia asked in surprise, "Why? Are you planning to come with me?" Sylvester replied casually, "Of course." In truth, he had an ulterior motive. "My adorable wife is going to the Imperial Palace. I must be by her side to support her." Ophelia knew full well he just wanted to use her as an excuse to interact with the Emperor. She laughed derisively, and so she had to be even more cautious. Sylvester's purpose was clear. He wanted to accompany her to satisfy his own desires. Of course, being with him would make her feel more at ease, but simply accepting his offer felt like a missed opportunity. Then, Ophelia, with graceful steps, approached the Duke and said in a negotiating tone, "Let's see. That could work." She began her performance. "But if you come with me, His Majesty's attention will be divided. I want all of his attention for myself." The experienced Duke Ryzen countered, "You say that because you don't know His Majesty's personality. Facing him alone will be difficult." Ophelia wasn't some naive damsel though, "But I'm not a pushover either." Duke Ryzen replied, "If I go with you, I'll give you money." With an innocent expression, Ophelia said, "Just money to meet the Emperor? Think of something better. How about this?" Sylvester watched Ophelia's retreating back and teased, "Your negotiation skills have improved quite a bit." Ophelia replied nonchalantly, "Have they? Well, I didn't have much choice. Don't I have you to thank for that?" At this point, a cheerful smile bloomed on her face, radiant like a celestial being. After their negotiation, the two returned to the mansion. The next day, Ophelia was yawning. She thought to herself, "I've achieved part of my goal, so Callion's confinement order isn't so bad today." Ophelia opened the window, welcoming the faint sunlight filtering through the frame and into her room. "The weather is beautiful today." At that moment, a servant called from outside, "Madam, are you awake?" The Raisin family mansion was so vast that even though Ophelia wandered around frequently, she couldn't explore it all. Getting lost was a common occurrence. Thus, her daily walks made her feel like a duchess in Wonderland. The entire mansion was a meticulously preserved historical site, filled with precious treasures. Looking at the sprawling mansion and the cities under the Duke's control, Ophelia couldn't help but marvel. The culture here is so new and there's so much to explore. It's like traveling abroad every day. Ophelia reviewed the places she had visited. Yesterday was the East Wing. The day before was the North. Today, the West Wing. "Yes," the servant responded, surprised by the mention of the West Wing. "The West Wing, madam." Ophelia, noticing the maid's hesitation, questioned, "What's wrong? Can't you go?" Irene responded tremblingly, "Yes, my lady. Anyone else could go, but you are the mistress of the house, so you should be able to go anywhere." The maid's words caused Ophelia's face to harden, like a blade ready to strike anyone who dared to lie. Turning to Irene, she said, "Lying to me won't do you any good, Irene. Tell me the truth." Hearing these words, and that tone made Irene extremely fearful and panicked. She stammered, "The West Wing. It's the Duke's, my lady. But it's strange. No one besides the Duke is allowed inside. It's completely forbidden. Even just going near it will earn you a scolding. It's rare to see the Duke so angry. So, you should stay away from there, my lady." Hearing Irene's words, Ophelia felt like she had struck gold, her face lighting up with excitement that a place like that, you say? Irene quickly tried to redirect Ophelia. "What about the South Wing, my lady? There are many paintings there you could admire." Ophelia stood up, saying, "Knowing this, I must go to the West Wing." Irene, alarmed, exclaimed, "Be but my lady, why?" "Because seeing my husband angry sounds quite amusing." A sinister, almost villainous expression spread across her face. Queen Ophelia gasped in astonishment at the imposing, yet eerily dilapidated architecture. The entire mansion was covered in moss, mildew, and creeping fungi. Unlike the other buildings, this one seemed utterly neglected. The Duke always maintains such a glamorous facade. I never would have guessed he had a place like this. It's practically a haunted house. Why would someone so meticulous and tidy as him neglect this place so thoroughly? Well, I suppose going inside will tell me. With that thought, she pushed open the rusted iron gate, and then the main door of the mansion. Ophelia cautiously stepped inside. The thick dust swirling in the air made her cough, forcing her to cover her nose with with her handkerchief. It's absolutely coated in dust. She wandered around, searching for whatever secret Duke Raisin was hiding. Ascending a flight of stairs, Ophelia muttered, "It's even more disheveled inside than out." Examining the structure, she noted, "The layout isn't that different from the other wings. Is there really a secret here?" Suddenly, something caught her eye. A painting, covered in cobwebs and grime, drew her attention. Her eyes widened as she gazed at the portrait of a woman, the epitome of timeless beauty, both elegant and noble. Her violet eyes, like precious emeralds, shimmered in the dim light, possessing a captivating allure that drew the viewer into a mystical labyrinth. Her gaze reflected not only wisdom, but also a mesmerizing gentleness, compelling all who met it to bow in admiration. Her raven hair, a masterpiece of artistry, flowed like a silken waterfall over her delicate shoulders. The lustrous strands were painted with such natural sheen. It seemed as if they were being caressed by a soft light. With her dreamy violet eyes and proud black hair, the lady in the portrait appeared like a goddess from legend, a vision of perfection that commanded the world's attention and awe. Ophelia breathed, such beautiful raven hair. Then, a startled gasp escaped her lips. Ophelia turned towards the source of the sound, her eyes widening in surprise at the sight of Sylvester, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he rushed towards her. Sylvester, his privacy violated, spoke in a furious voice, "I don't mind you doing things you've never done before. But why are you here?" He couldn't help but feel irritated and annoyed. Sylvester wasn't acting like his usual self. For the first time, he showed anger, making Ophelia stammer. "I was just bored, so I came here." "Are you angry?" Sylvester grabbed Ophelia's slender shoulders. "Angry? You can't stay here long. Get out quickly." Ophelia cried out in confusion. "This is the previous Duchess, your mother, isn't it? Can I ask why you've hidden this portrait away?" Sylvester angrily replied, "That's not something you need to know." Ophelia retorted, "I'm your wife, so of course I have a right to ask." Sylvester glared furiously at Ophelia. "There are things in this world you don't need to know. It doesn't matter. And there are many things you can't know. Do you understand? So don't ever think about coming here again." But Ophelia couldn't help but wonder. Had Sylvester ever been this defensive before? He always acted cunning and rather detestable. After the confrontation, she walked down the stairs. Her careless steps caused her shoes to slip, making her stumble and fall. She cried out in fear, "Oh no!" Sylvester saw her falling towards him, taking him completely by surprise. He yelled, "Ophelia!" With a thud, she fell into his arms. Sylvester quickly asked, "Are you hurt anywhere?" Ophelia groaned, No, thank you." Before he could finish his question, she looked down. The sight before them left them speechless. "I'm sorry, I suddenly fell." Sylvester mumbled, a hint of awkwardness in his voice. "It's okay, Ophelia. Thank you for catching me. It was just an accident, so please excuse me if I made you uncomfortable." Sylvester said, "This position is a bit strange." Ophelia looked at the situation. He was right. Sylvester turned away, his face as red as a beet. "It's good that you're not hurt." But when Ophelia saw Sylvester's face, she felt embarrassed. What the? She didn't understand why he was blushing so much. A servant outside, seeing Ophelia and Sylvester emerge, asked anxiously, "Madam, are you all right?" Afterward, the two returned to the mansion. As soon as they arrived, she threw herself face down onto the soft bed. "Don't mind me." Ophelia still felt embarrassed. Why did he react like that? He looked like a love-struck teenager. It made her feel shy too. He should have reacted with his usual cunning. He'd never been like that before. He wasn't that kind of person. No, if things continue like this, my resolve to divorce Sylvester will disappear. If that really happens, my desire to stay by the villain's side will surely lead to a bitter end, and the principles will be changed to an extent I can't foresee. My future path. I'll call Ophelia to disrupt the upcoming events. She addressed a servant. "My confinement ends next week, correct?" The servant replied, "Yes, madam." Ophelia said, "I'll have to go out sooner or later then." Meanwhile, someone was lost in thought, prompting the steward to repeatedly call out, "Sylvester, Sylvester, Sylvester." Hearing his name, he snapped out of his reverie. "What were you thinking about so intently?" Sylvester replied, "Nothing. Carry on. Have you heard anything about the second prince? I'm sure he's not dead, is he?" The steward said, "How could that be, sir? He's just busy. He's suppressing magical beasts in the north. Not anywhere else, sir. No matter how much he cuts me down, it never seems to be enough. He must be enjoying this." Sylvester sighed. "That's right. If you hear anything, report back to me." The steward bowed. "I understand." But Sylvester asked, "You haven't sensed anything? What are you talking about?" "Lately, Ophelia hasn't been going to the dark magic research lab." Sylvester continued. "That's true," the steward realized. "But isn't that a good thing? Even though we don't know why the Duchess suddenly stopped going there, It's probably because she got bored. She's fickle like that. Is that really the reason? Sylvester thought, I have a bad feeling about this. She could be lulling me into a false sense of security and then suddenly unleash some forbidden magic. Preventing that twice wouldn't be easy, even for me. The steward sighed. Then why don't you use this as an opportunity to get rid of the Duchess? What else are you trying to say? Sylvester continued. Ophelia is acting strange. Before, she wouldn't let me anywhere near her. Even if she's changed, this is too much. The steward mused sarcastically. It can't be because she got struck by lightning. Yes, Sylvester agreed. Well, no, maybe she really did get struck by lightning. The steward recounted. On a stormy night not long ago. Sylvester recalled her words that I'm your wife. I never thought she'd say something like that. It's not like her at all. I have to find out what she's planning. I also need to prepare for a surprise attack. Suddenly, right? I need to be more cautious. I didn't think my face would get that red, especially in front of Ophelia. My ego is my own. Whether I keep it or throw it away is up to me. Although I only casually suggested it, she put in a lot of effort. At least the Crown Prince's attention is being diverted toward Lady William. Whether the seduction succeeds or not doesn't matter much. All I need is an excuse. If the public's trust in the Crown Prince declines, I can put the second prince on the throne as planned. Yes, I must make the second prince the emperor. Only then can I achieve my long-held desire. Meanwhile, Ophelia was in the alley of a rundown market. Seeing her go into such a shady place, her maid worriedly asked, Madam, where are you going? This road seems dangerous. Ophelia reassured her. I'm with you, what are you worried about? The maid muttered to herself, but Madam is also weak. Lately, everyone seems to have forgotten that Ophelia used to be a dark magic wielder. But actually, the person I trust the most right now is the secret escort Sylvester planted. Although no one uses it because of the drawbacks of dark magic, it actually has many useful applications. I need a way to protect this body, so I need to learn more about it. Ophelia thought, Madam, is that the blue roof you were talking about? Ophelia exclaimed happily. Oh, it's exactly like the instructions. Let's go in. A pungent smell assaulted their noses as they approached. As expected, the place where they make that stuff is something else. I'm so glad to have customers after so long, the large craftsman said. Go away. There's nothing here for a lady like you. Ophelia's maid, Irene, heard this and said, How rude. Do you know who this is? The large craftsman replied, That doesn't concern me. Regardless, you shouldn't be here. Duchess or not, it makes no difference. Go back. Ophelia said, You're running an illegal business. I mean, cooking and selling monster meat. Of course, everyone turns a blind eye to eating it on the battlefield to be able to destroy monsters. But you opening a business and selling monster meat is completely illegal. If the royal guard finds this place, you'll get at least 15 years in prison. Isn't that right? The large man looked surprised at this. He asked, Do you have any proof? Go away. Threatening me won't work. Ophelia took off her cloak and said, Disappointing. You're only realizing it now. Those who live in the back alleys know me very well. I'm the wife of Sylvester Vezin, the king of these back alleys, and I'm a dark witch. Ophelia continued, Don't say things like I'm threatening you. I just came here to buy some meat. The large craftsman was astonished. Madam, what do you intend to do with the monster meat? Ophelia replied, It's a gift for someone who truly appreciates it. Back at the royal palace, the crown prince was staring blankly at the meal his young mistress had prepared. Your Highness, is the food not to your liking? The crown prince said, Oh no, it's nothing. She thought to herself, It seems like he hasn't had much of an appetite lately. Why is that? This isn't something that can be solved by being together and hugging. I wish I could help His Highness. The mistress saw Ophelia approaching and called out, Ryan, Duchess, where are you going? Ophelia replied, I'm heading back. The mistress said, I'll have a maid escort you. Ophelia responded, No need. Everyone's busy. The mistress said, Oh well, if you say so, I understand. Then, Madam, please be careful on your way back. She looked at the seal on the letter from earlier. It's definitely the Ryzen family seal. In the room, the man said, Even if you are that witch, threats won't work on me. Ophelia threw a bag of gold coins down and said, That's sad. Why would you say I'm threatening you? She pointed at the bag and continued, Is this enough? The man stared at the money, startled. He stammered, Why are you paying so much for monster meat? Ophelia calmly replied, Its price is for you to decide. By the way, she smiled slightly, I'm also quite curious about the rumors surrounding the night. His eyes lit up. Ophelia thought to herself, That's right. This place is actually an information guild. Of course, Ben Silver's information guild is better. But having my own information network wouldn't be so bad either. Besides, this is where Flo buys monster meat, breaking the rules, and it's Kalian's favorite information guild. The man scowled at Ophelia and grunted. He extended his hand in greeting. Call me Joseph. This caught Ophelia slightly off guard. She said cheerfully, So, you'll sell me the meat now, right? Joseph replied, I'll give you the best. But what should I call you? Calling you Madam will attract too much attention. So, I'll use a pseudonym. Irene was standing when suddenly a cat walked up to her. But Joseph said if she didn't like it, then forget it. Ophelia hesitated slightly, but responded to Joseph. The sky was golden. The sunlight shone on a certain girl who appeared in Ophelia's mind. She said, "Call me Joseph." Joseph stroked his chin. Joseph, what a unique name. I understand. So, when do you plan to commission me? Ophelia smiled. Soon. And also, Irene lifted the cat and watched them talk. Suddenly, Ophelia turned to look at Irene, making her jump. Ophelia declared, from now on, if nothing unusual happens, this little girl will come here in my place. Irene exclaimed, "Yes, ma'am." Joseph was skeptical that a tiny girl like this. Irene trembled. Ophelia hugged her and said, despite appearances, she's someone I trust, so you must treat her well. Joseph turned away. Well, I understand. I'll bring the items. Wait a moment. Ophelia replied casually, all right. Meanwhile, Irene was still trembling. She turned away, tears welling up. Madam, I can't do it. Ophelia asked why. What's the reason you can't do it? Irene cried out, it's scary. Today is the first time I've been to an alley like this. What if I get kidnapped next time? Madam, you're fine because you're used to dark places. I don't have any strength. If it were Madam, it would be fine. These words pierced Ophelia painfully. Irene cried out, oh, I'd rather you just kill me. Ophelia thought, how frightening. Finally, she voiced what she had been hiding. Ophelia placed her hand on Irene's shoulder and said, Irene, even if I tripled your wages, you still couldn't do it? Irene blushed, I will work hard. Ophelia thought, so cute. Under the blue sky, the two continued to another location. A man bowed his head and said, I'm sorry, there are no carriages available at the moment. You'll have to wait a little longer. Ophelia replied, is that so? There's no other way, huh? Irene thought, Madam has really changed. Before, if she heard those words, she would have imagined Ophelia grabbing the man by the collar, saying, are you telling me to wait here? Do you want to die? And that would have been the light version. Irene clutched her bag. If I continue to be Madam's personal maid, work hard, and get promoted quickly, I could become the Duke's head maid and earn a lot of money. Then I could meet a good man, get married, and live a happy life. What a wonderful life. Irene painted a fulfilling future for herself. Her eyes became determined. All right, I have to stay by Madam's side no matter what. The person I had to endure for so long. I was no different from a demon. But now, Madam is like an angel. Yes, I must do whatever it takes. Ophelia turned and said, well then, we'll kill some time. Would you like some tea? Irene walked forward, still thinking to stay by Madam's side. She rushed forward and hugged Ophelia. Yes, ma'am. Ophelia was puzzled at there's a famous tea shop nearby. Shall I take you there? Ophelia replied, is that so? Then let's go. At a magnificent castle, Ascalion sat on a chair, deep in thought. A servant standing nearby asked, you seem troubled, your highness. He replied, of course I am. Callion touched the letter. That woman sent this letter. He looked at the words, I will bring the item. But she secretly thought, I don't want her here, but she might have a letter from Mother. So I can't refuse. He propped his chin in his hand and said, who knew things would turn out like this? Callion thought, should I try leaving this charade? No. If she doesn't bring the letter, I'll definitely give her a piece of my mind. Fleur approached Callion's room, her face falling. How could this be? That day passed like that, and yet I saw the Duchess again that day. She recalled the time they were happy together. It's not normal at all. I've never encountered a situation like this. Fleur bit her lip. This won't do. Elsewhere, Ophelia and Irina were enjoying drinks at a tea house. Back at the castle, a voice rang out, Your Highness, Duchess Ophelia Risen has arrived. Callion emerged as the maids bowed their heads. He thought, Ophelia Risen, what trick are you planning this time? But whatever it is, his eyes narrowed as the door slowly opened. It won't sway my heart. Ophelia, beautifully dressed, sat in the room. She turned and smiled. Your Highness, have you been well? Callion's eyes flashed. She's still the same. Only her appearance has improved. He walked over and sat down to So what brings you here? If it's not the letter, we have nothing to discuss, and you should just leave. Callion said with a stern, annoyed expression. Ophelia smiled outwardly, but inwardly, she was fuming. This unreasonable man, compared to him, at least Sinister is more like a nobleman. She clutched her skirt, suppressing her anger. Stay calm, endure. She turned to retrieve something, and Callion asked, what are you doing? Your Highness, Ophelia replied, I've brought something I'm sure you'll like. Like the letter. She placed something on the table that surprised and agitated Callion. An old wooden box was presented, covered in grime. Under the corner of the wooden box was a dark, dried bloodstain, a chilling sight. Callion's pale, horrified face betrayed him. He instinctively took a step back. Not only was Callion's expression filled with horror, but his voice also trembled with anger that you've finally gone mad, haven't you? I was wondering when you would snap. His voice grew more irritated. What are you doing? How dare you bring a corpse to the royal palace? Faced with the crown prince's questioning tone, Ophelia simply smiled gently and said, "It is a corpse, but your highness, you won't be able to imagine." Callian froze, terrified, staring at the blood-stained box on the table. "Just look and you'll see." As the box opened, Callian's expression shifted from horror to astonishment, his eyes flashing with a hint of desire. Inside was a piece of flesh, rosy like a pink quartz. The fresh meat looked like a treasure. Monster meat. Memories flooded back to the crown prince, memories he could never forget from his time as a mercenary. The glistening, slimy raw meat filled his imagination, along with its taste. I ate this once a week, consumed by longing for its flavor. Callian's face was filled with desire, his mouth practically watering. When I entered the royal palace, I couldn't eat anymore. 2 years of suppressing myself. He tried to swallow a large gulp. "It's been 2 years. He spoke loudly towards Ophelia, sitting opposite him, feigning criticism. "Are you out of your mind? Trading monster meat is illegal." She calmly replied, "Do I even need to pay attention to such things?" She calmly lifted her teacup and took a sip. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Callian could only watch helplessly, suppressing his desire. It was true. Looking at the precious piece of meat he had craved for so long, sitting on the table, emitting an aura that made people shudder. Even if he were to report this, she would only be dealt with by the royal knights. Even if she were caught for carrying monster meat. Inwardly, he rejoiced, his eyes still fixed on it. Wouldn't she just have to say she didn't know anything? So, if he put all the blame on her, he could eat it. A flustered maid pushed the door open and entered. Before the crown prince's loud and commanding voice, "Someone, get this out of my sight." "Why, yes, your highness." Then he added, "Take it to the kitchen." The maid asked again in bewilderment, seeking confirmation. "The kitchen, your highness?" He turned to look at the maid, his face flushed with excitement and anticipation. The bewildered maid, her head full of question marks, carried the box away. "Take that box away. Absolutely do not throw it away." Ophelia witnessed everything, a teasing look on her face directed at Crown Prince Callian, making him jump. His face flushed even redder. "Seems like you like it, your highness." Crown Prince Callian, embarrassed, tried to retort that I don't, but Ophelia just smiled teasingly. "Anyone can see that you like it." This made Crown Prince Callian protest even more vehemently. "I said I don't. Now that you're done, get out of here." She laughed cheerfully. "Come on, why are you treating the person who went through so much trouble to bring this to you like this?" But it seemed she went a bit too far as his expression changed. His face quickly darkened, a menacing aura emanating from him. That's enough from you." Callian spoke sternly, giving her 5 seconds, 0.5 for... At this point, she realized she'd pushed it too far and quickly changed the subject. "I found an information guild." Callian looked at her incredulously. "It's a place my husband can't touch. Although it's a bit worse than my husband's, it's not too bad." A tavern filled with dangerous-looking mercenaries, laughing and joking amongst themselves, yet the atmosphere was quite intimidating. Mercenaries from all over the world gathered there to exchange information. She looked at him seriously. "Your highness knows, acting without any information is very dangerous." This made Callian ponder her words. It was true. Information was what he needed most right now. He considered the 2 dangerous opponents he had to face in his bid for the throne, the Second Prince and Sinister Vezin. If he wanted to hinder them, an information guild was essential. His face showed his worry, but Sinister has monopolized most information guilds, so I can't gather intel through them. Ophelia's expression relaxed as she added, "But this information guild is wary of everything, so I can't tell you its location. Please understand." Then Callian focused on the reason behind her offer of help. "Why are you telling me about this place?" She paused, silent for a short moment, before answering, "Because I want to." With a high-pitched voice and a love-struck face, she looked towards Crown Prince Callian. "I really like your highness." Hearing this answer made his whole body freeze, unable to believe what he had just seen and heard. Another silence hung in the air between the two. How brazen, he thought. She truly has no shame. His voice was even as he asked, "I can't believe it. Aren't you the Duchess Vezin's wife?" He then looked at her again and criticized, "What you're doing is betraying the Duke." Her blue eyes looked up at him, standing there criticizing her like a bristling hedgehog. But her expression remained unchanged. "Even if you do everything," he continued, "I won't love you. I've never even considered it, not even once. Absolutely not." Her slender figure slowly rose and walked closer. "I'm not saying this to win you over, so don't worry," she thought to herself. "If he doesn't accept my help, it doesn't matter. Ophelia can betray her husband anytime. I should take advantage of Ophelia's feelings." Her plan was to create this impression on Callian and try to attract his attention. This method could harm Sylvester. She recalled the scene of Duke Vezin talking to her before. "But he was the one who told me to seduce the crown prince. He has only himself to blame." Her footsteps drew nearer to him. Isn't it natural to want the one you like to succeed? After her words, silence fell between them, but finally Crown Prince Callian spoke. Ophelia, he said, his words halting, a woman like you. A gentle smile played on her face, and with those emerald green eyes, her expression remained soft yet dangerous. Even if she caused a multitude of wicked deeds, she felt no guilt. The smile on Callian's lips widened, eager like a child, truly wicked indeed. Her cheeks flushed at his words. The tension and hostility seemed to dissipate. It seems her smile brightened, brimming with amusement, have truly become the villainess. After a period of conversation, though not long, it seemed both had moved closer to their goals. Ophelia left Crown Prince Callian's tea room. A carriage was waiting at the gate. The madam has returned, a servant announced. Then let's depart immediately, she replied firmly. Aren't you going to rest a bit first? Stepping inside, she sank onto the soft cushions of the carriage, sighing, good heavens, I'm exhausted. Today was truly busy. She wearily slid down in her seat, gazing at the carriage ceiling. But it seems this time I've managed to garner some interest from Callian. The problem is if power falls into Callian's hands, Sylvester will be at a disadvantage. Thinking of her villainous husband with his dangerous countenance, she couldn't underestimate him in principle. But who is Sylvester? He's the villain in the original story, someone untouchable. The image in her mind shifted to the image from the original story she had read about her father. Unless someone causes his magical power to... The more she thought, the more intrigued she became. And that someone is me. She furrowed her brows, lost in thought. But how can Ophelia cause Sylvester's magic to explode? Is it due to magic itself, or some other power of Ophelia's that I don't know about? A yellow dress. Carefully, Ophelia approached the carriage she was waiting in. A light knock on the carriage window startled Ophelia from her reverie. Startled, she turned and pulled back the curtain, a look of confusion in her wide eyes. Who is it? She asked. A familiar face appeared before her. Fleur stood there, her expression eager upon seeing Ophelia. Greetings, Duchess, Fleur said. But Ophelia was alarmed to see her, wondering why Fleur had come. Why was she looking for her? Fleur had just recently turned against her. Fleur spoke up, offering an explanation that I came here to see His Highness, but I happened to see your carriage, madam. Her face was full of sincerity as she looked at Ophelia. S.O. I wanted to apologize for my rudeness the other day. Ophelia quickly leaned out of the carriage window, looking around as if searching for something. Fleur remained beside the carriage, her expression sincere. Could you spare me a moment? She asked, looking directly at Ophelia, whose face was filled with indecision. What should I do? She thought. She hesitated, unsure whether to keep her distance. Should I refuse? Or should I play along with her for a bit? There's no one around anyway. Seeing Ophelia's lack of response, Fleur's eyes grew even more pleading, like a puppy begging, is it not possible, madam? Faced with Fleur's pitiful expression, Ophelia's cheeks flushed as she unconsciously forgave her. She then allowed Fleur to enter the carriage to talk. Inside, the two sat facing each other, sunlight streaming in. I was so surprised last time, so I acted rudely, Fleur began. Ophelia looked at Fleur's remorseful face. Flustered by her helplessness, I apologize again. It's good that you understand you were wrong, but... Ophelia regained her composure, trying to suppress her awkward feelings. Shouldn't you avoid me then? Yes. Ophelia gently reproached her. If the Crown Prince finds out we met, he'll scold me. Fleur looked at her with a distressed expression. Why would that be? She then looked at Ophelia with a determined and confident look. Don't worry, I won't let him do that. Ophelia looked at her with surprise and a flicker of disbelief. Fleur's cheerful expression was met with Ophelia's helplessness, but he'll definitely listen to me. Fleur's face was bright and lively, a natural, cheerful expression. Ophelia was amazed that she could say such things with a smile. Losing patience, she sighed. Nothing special here. Just let her go. All right, she said, her tone impatient. Thank you. Ophelia coldly cut off their conversation. If you're done, you can go back now. Fleur fell silent, only able to sit there with a forced smile. Her hands fidgeted slightly as she finally spoke. I heard that the Duchess has changed recently. The newspapers and everyone are saying so. The rustling wind outside seemed to amplify the tension of their conversation. S.O. I wanted to tell you this. What is it? Her voice remained even as she said, my husband and, no, I'm preparing to divorce Count William. A gentle breeze rustled the curtain by the window. Inside the carriage, time seemed to stand still. Then, after a moment, their conversation stopped, leaving Ophelia with a look of surprise. I'm going to marry His Highness. Then Fleur smiled again, brimming with joy and anticipation. She hoped the madam would come to celebrate this happy occasion, but only for a fleeting moment. Fleur's cheerful expression vanished, as if the smile hadn't truly been there. A picture of a happy family of three surfaced in her memory. I came from an ordinary family. Our home was a small manor, but cozy and happy. Though not titled, my family was quite wealthy. Back then, she had many close friends surrounding her, and everyone called her an angel. That joyful scene in her mind suddenly shattered. But I never imagined this life would crumble in an instant. The moment the large cargo ship, bobbing on the sea, also shattered in her mind. My father's ship sank. Darkness enveloped the entire storage room. There wasn't a scrap of food. Everything vanished in the blink of an eye. And every day, I lived in fear of where our next meal would come from. She hid behind the door, witnessing her family's arguments, which became a terrible memory. The smell of alcohol, the shouting, and their ferocious expressions. That house was filled with horrors. All her former friends gradually distanced themselves. I was no longer an angel. What happened? Their innocent yet mocking whispers filled her with panic and fear. Everything was lost in a single night. It seems her family debt is piling up too. How pitiful. All those who were once her friends now felt like ghosts, mocking her from behind. It was terrifying, bringing tears to her eyes. It turns out all those sweet compliments were lies. The faces once familiar to her were now just shadows, sneering at her. Their expressions were as if they were watching something amusing. The sunset faded, like the glimmer of hope for her future in that small house, after leaving the peaceful manor. One such sunset afternoon, an elderly nobleman who had always been kind to her came to visit. His wrinkled hand on her shoulder made her flinch. Think about it. I will cherish you for the rest of my life. The path corresponding to the limited choices she could see at the time only filled her eyes with more terror. Even though it's disgusting, what else can I do? Isn't this life already hell? A luxurious chair, but only in a dark room within the mansion. Perhaps this could be an opportunity, a chance to rise from the depths. The image of a happy family of 3 now became a picture of Fleur and Count William. Then the Count married me, and all our family debts disappeared. 2 hands, vastly different in age, now were the same ring connecting them. She deceived herself with thoughts that went against her conscience. This is a good choice. I'm a countess now. From a small house to a large, spacious mansion. A life of abundance, with a noble status admired by all. The moment everyone who once cherished her, smiled at her with admiration, returned once more. I became an angel again. That joyful moment seemed to pause, leaving Fleur bewildered. Everything was bathed in a rosy hue. This life is fulfilling enough. Step by step, Fleur tiptoed across the lush green lawn. It's enough. Her violet eyes shone with a rosy light. At that moment, it was like a jewel opening wide. Such surprise was enough. She looked at the blonde-haired man lying unconscious on the sunny grass. But was I truly satisfied with that? Unconsciously, I took care of him. As if bewitched, I brought him home. His hair shone brightly like gilded wheat. Fleur's hand gently touched his golden hair and handsome face. It was the first time I'd seen someone like him. Why did he faint? She lost herself in his face and her own thoughts. Before long, I realized it was destiny. Sunlight streamed into the church. Crown Prince Callian knelt before Fleur. Fleur, because you saved and cared for me, I can stand here now. With a ring in his hand and a happy expression, he looked directly at Fleur. His voice was serious. You saved me. She looked at Crown Prince Callian, a dazed expression briefly crossing her face, tinged with indifference. Yes, this is destiny. Her thoughts grew increasingly distorted. Convinced she was a special child chosen by God, that I am a truly special existence. All the hardships I've endured were to meet this man. The painful, difficult memories were almost ripped from her future path, that I am not a commoner. Nor am I just a countess. The image of the 2 of them standing before God, engaged, was her golden destiny. I am the future queen. But then the ball took place. All eyes were drawn to another woman. Look, that woman is there again. Her eyes sparkled with admiration as she watched. It was Duchess Ophelia Raisin. Ophelia descended the staircase in a snow-white gown, radiating a dazzling aura. Her cold eyes shone that if a snow mountain fairy appeared, would she look like that? An aura of powerful aloofness surrounded her, so different from Fleur herself. A breathtaking beauty. It was a noble, almost unapproachable beauty, and I can't win against that. She watched Ophelia with burning admiration. That freedom, we absolutely must not get involved with that wish. Yes, that's right. And then the accident happened. Fleur sat on the ground, her skirt torn. Her wickedness has somehow eased my heart. Ophelia, a small dagger in her hand, was still struggling hopelessly. Cunning thing. How dare someone like you obstruct me? Fleur's face was filled with shock and terror. Why? If things continue like this, the bond with Callian will become stronger. Callian, also panicked, rushed towards her. Although being hit was painful, Callian looked like he wanted to kill her. Fleur, she did this to you because of me. Crown Prince Callian rushed forward and embraced Fleur, who was staring blankly. His expression changed instantly, like a wolf protecting its prey. "Get out of here, Ophelia Raisin, and never appear before me again. Just seeing your face makes me sick." Then, following his command, soldiers dragged Ophelia away, and "Oh, I can't just leave like this, Your Highness. Your Highness." Fleur's arms wrapped around Crown Prince Kalian's strong back. Inwardly, she rejoiced. How satisfying. All the times Ophelia and Fleur had met flashed before her eyes. No matter how noble and beautiful Ophelia Raisin was, then your love will always be directed towards me. She won't be able to beat me in this lifetime, that's for sure. Along with the image of her hiding behind the door, peeking with hateful eyes. Surely the scene, just now, Ophelia's private meeting with the Crown Prince, Kalian, she saw it all. Surely Ophelia's hatred and resentment are growing heavier in her heart, gradually showing on her face. I won't let her steal him away. I won't go back to that past. It's okay. All difficulties are there to help me shine. But finally, a small smile crept over that angry look. "So, Ophelia, be angry. Keep directing your anger at me with your ladylike cruelty. So, why aren't you coming to my wedding?" Ophelia clearly recognized her provocation, causing the tension between the two to escalate. "Make me shine." Ophelia's silence made Fleur's heart restless and anxious. "Come on, hurry up. You won't be able to hold back your anger." Ophelia remained seated without any movement. "You're the best, aren't you?" After a short while, she finally spoke softly and calmly. "Such a joyous occasion. I will certainly attend with pleasure," causing Fleur, sitting opposite her, to be stunned, speechless with astonishment. She gently pushed open the door beside her. "If you're finished, please get out of the carriage." Immediately after Fleur stepped out of the carriage, it started moving without hesitation. She was taken aback by Ophelia's calm demeanor. Surprised, isn't she? How could it be? Does she think hitting me has no value anymore? When the carriage had traveled some distance, a loud scream startled the driver. Arg! Inside, Ophelia unleashed her fury on the carriage cushion. So frustrating, so unfair, to be one-sidedly treated like this. She accidentally hit her hand on the wooden panel above. Clearly, she was provoking me, wanting me to hit her. If I just do what she wants, won't she tell Kalian? She looked at her reddened hand, recalling their unpleasant encounters. But even if I don't lay a hand on her, she'll still go and tell him lies like last time. Exhausted and helpless, she brought her hand to her face in frustration. Fleur is supposed to be gentle and naive. She's kinder than anyone. This is such a headache. How can a character's image crumble to this extent? The driver's voice interrupted her thoughts. "We've arrived, my lady." Ophelia straightened up deceptively and gripped the side of the carriage. "Ugh, I'm so tired. I need to hurry back to my room and rest." A familiar hand was extended to her as the door opened, surprising her. "Is something the matter?" Sylvester's expression was calm as he softly replied to her question, his hand still outstretched. "You returned quite late." "Yes." She gently placed her hand in his to be helped down. But they didn't forget to continue their conversation. "Didn't Irene tell you I went to see the Crown Prince? But it's quite late now. You should be careful." Sylvester's cold face looked down at her as he asked in a steady voice, "So, did something happen?" She was immediately drawn to his concerned inquiry. "Yes." Her expression was now filled with grievance. "You don't look well." Her voice wavered, avoiding his gaze. "Well," she thought to herself, "actually, I do want to talk to someone." Although he didn't say anything, he continued to watch her face. "Well, that is, but it's Sylvester, so it's a bit." She hesitated, her lips pressed together in a flustered manner. I didn't know whether to tell him or not. But then she mustered all her courage and blurted out everything she wanted to say. The atmosphere between me and the Crown Prince wasn't bad today, so I felt quite happy. But on the way back, I ran into Countess Fleur. She wanted to get into my carriage, and suddenly, she wanted me to give her my blessing for her upcoming divorce from her current husband and marriage to the Crown Prince. Don't you think she's ridiculous? She finally released his hand after finishing her sentence, breathing heavily. He stared at her, wide-eyed with surprise. "You said it," he murmured, lifting his hand and looking at the one Ophelia had just gripped tightly, silently. The night was quiet and beautiful, only their voices echoing in the stillness. "Did you hit her?" he asked. "I didn't hit her," Ophelia replied, though I really wanted to. Sylvester turned gently, facing her exasperation. "You managed to restrain yourself? Are you praising me?" After that, they both walked into the mansion. "Well, it seems Countess Fleur has declared war. It's best to be careful from now on. Do you know what Countess Fleur is really like?" He continued walking, calmly revealing the truth. Surprising her, "It doesn't feel very good, does it?" My intuition was right. She struts around the palace as if she owns the place. Ophelia unconsciously clenched her fists that that's true. If we go by the original story, Fleur isn't weak at all. She remembered Fleur's strength in the original novel she had read. Even though Ophelia in the original story family had treated her cruelly, Fleur had endured. She survived until the end and maintained her position that she's a woman with a strong will. Yes, Ophelia resolved, I have to face this. This is the time I need to make a decision. She decided to review everything from the beginning to achieve her goal, that I have to re-examine and analyze the characters. The original Fleur no longer exists. The next morning, in a grassy training ground filled with straw dummies, a lone young man practiced his swordsmanship. A clear voice called out, catching his attention as he wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. His expression shifted to one of surprise and eagerness, his eyes widening. Lady Ophelia? Theo happily approached her, waving, as she walked towards him carrying a small basket under the bright, sparkling sky. The air was fresh and peaceful. The small basket Ophelia carried contained some wine, tea, and fruit. Ophelia cheerfully inquired about his life at the mansion. Did I ess it too difficult? Not too difficult, madam, Theo replied. A little overwhelming, actually. He shyly glanced at her. I was so rude to refuse your offer at first. She smiled warmly. Thank you for persuading me and accepting me again. Haha, what's there to thank me for? They chatted happily for a while. How's your sword training going? I still lack a lot of experience, but the sword master has praised me many times, so I guess I have some potential. Sitting together on the grass in the gentle breeze, Theo hesitantly mentioned Sylvester. Last time, the master came to train with me too. This surprised her, and she imagined Sylvester's smile. Perhaps he also recognizes my talent a little. Sylvester. But then she remembered the scene when she first brought Theo home. How Sylvester had initially been so harsh. He seems to have recognized Theo's talent. Get rid of that filthy dog. No, I said I could raise him myself. Of course, she thought, a silly grin spreading across her face. Telling him wouldn't have mattered anyway. Well, my judgment is never wrong. Theo turned to look at her bright, cheerful face, his own expression mirroring hers. My lady looks so happy. Do you two need anything else? If so, please tell me, and I will listen. His tone was hesitant, his fidgeting hands betraying his nervousness. I have a favor to ask of you. Ophelia looked at him innocently, a small smile playing on her lips. After listening to Theo's request, Ophelia's hurried footsteps echoed through the mansion's hallways. She ran frantically, a panicked inner monologue screaming, "Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this before?" She recalled Theo's shy confession. The teacher gave me a book, but I can't read. It's so embarrassing. I've never learned how. I wish I could. This memory fueled her determination, pushing her to run faster, her spirit ablaze. The door to Sylvester's study burst open. Ophelia rushed in, her face alight with excitement, calling out loudly enough to startle his secretary, who yelped, "Husband!" She hurried further inside, leaving the secretary clutching his chest in surprise. It's been a while since you've come in like this. I'll take that as a good sign. What is it, husband? A loud thud echoed in the serene, dimly lit brown room. Grabbing Sylvester's hands, she pulled him closer, her voice clear and loud. "Give me some money right now." Sylvester, his face blank with bewilderment, stared at her, frozen in place. The scene abruptly shifted to a cityscape filled with towering buildings. I said that, but why are we suddenly outside? Ophelia, dressed in an elegant blue dress, gaped in awe at the peaceful cityscape. Sylvester's shoes clicked against the pavement as he approached Ophelia. It's been a while since you've come to a place like this for personal reasons, hasn't it? He, too, was dressed impeccably in a suit the same color as hers, striding confidently towards her. Let's go, Ophelia. Ophelia's cheeks flushed as she turned to look at him, surprised by something. This isn't. The scene made them look much more like a couple than usual, almost like they were on a date. The weather was pleasant, the trees lush and green, the sunlight dappling the buildings and streets. Wow, why did you bring me here? Ophelia asked, looking around in wonder. Sylvester glanced at her. I have some business to attend to. I'll be away for a moment. He sighed slightly. You wouldn't ask if you knew, would you? Yes, I need clothes. The sunlight glinted, creating a rainbow that illuminated Ophelia's beauty. What are you talking about? What I mean is, you've been dressing very plainly lately. The dress you wore yesterday was truly beautiful, Sylvester said, arms crossed. But you wore that while asking me for money. People will think I can't afford to let you buy clothes. An image flashed of Ophelia in a tattered dress, one hand outstretched for money, the other clutching a few coins. What kind of logic is that? But I wasn't asking for money for clothes, she protested, her face reddening. We'll talk about that later, Sylvester replied matter-of-factly. Today, just enjoy yourself with me, he added with a gentle smile. Ophelia blushed. Honestly, he's usually so annoying. She trailed behind him, thinking, what's gotten into him today? His footsteps echoed on the pavement. Sylvester's face flushed in the morning sun. Madam, how about this one? It's this season's newest design. Miss Sai gave a warm smile and a compliment. Ophelia stood pale before the mirror, staring at her reflection. The frilled, lizard skin pattern dress was terribly tight. Huh, she sighed. The girl with the high ponytail beside her looked frightened. It's so scary. But the Duchess came all the way here. Her eyes burned with fervent passion. And no matter how bad her personality is, the Duchess's clothes always attract attention. So I can't miss a good opportunity like this. This kind of publicity is priceless. Just a couple of bones, and complete success in return. Sai was brimming with enthusiasm, while Ophelia remained oblivious. Suddenly, it's so hot. I want to stop. She turned her head. Why aren't you choosing any more dresses? Sylvester, sitting beside her reading a book, looked up and asked. Ophelia gritted her teeth. Why does he look so happy? I need to choose quickly and get out of here. She walked over to the dresses hanging on the mannequins. How about that one? The one over there? While pointing at a dress, through the transparent mirror, she saw a young boy staring intently from outside. His eyes were glued to the dress. Ophelia noticed him. Behind her, Sai startled out, that child. These past few days, that child has been lingering around our shop. He kneels on the wooden plank outside, looking in since early morning. Even when I tell him to go somewhere else, he comes back. Sai explained anxiously. Ophelia picked up a dress and prepared to leave. Mrs. Sai panicked. Sylvester also looked up in surprise. Hey there, little boy. Ophelia approached the child who was squatting and writing lines on the ground outside the shop with a stick. What are you doing here? 325 gold coins. Ophelia was taken aback. Huh, that's the total amount you've spent on dresses, the boy said with a bright smile. For several days, I've been complimenting and asking the price from customers who bought dresses. So they told me everything. Some even started bragging. After asking many times, I've gotten a feel for it. I can grasp how the price increases with added decorations. That's how I calculated it so accurately, he explained enthusiastically. Ophelia looked at him. That you're quite dedicated, aren't you? The boy grinned. That am I right, madam? Yes. Ophelia paused, then smiled. Wrong. The boy's eyes widened. Yes. There's one dress with very few decorations, but it's the most expensive. She crouched down to speak to him. The price of a dress isn't just about the decorations, but also the design. Many factors affect the price, so your calculations are off. Ophelia's expression was serious. To be precise, I spent 487 gold coins. The boy was flustered. Such a big difference. He lowered his head under her surprised gaze. But thanks to you, madam, I now know that prices differ depending on the design too. I'll calculate more accurately next time. He bent down again, pointing at the numbers he had written on the ground. Looking up, he smiled confidently that I'll definitely guess correctly next time. This child. You suddenly ran out, so I wondered what you were doing. Sylvester walked over to Ophelia and the boy. This is an interesting conversation, isn't it? He smiled, resting his chin on his hand. Sylvester, when did you get here? Right after you went out, perhaps. Everyone was worried because you ran out after seeing the child, wondering if he was hurt. In her mind, Ophelia imagined herself like a witch, lifting the child by his arms. How dare you be an eyesore to me? This theory is quite convincing. You're happy, aren't you? But what's that child's name? The little boy looked up at me blankly. My name is Rebert. He was still squatting while looking up to answer Sylvester's question. Truly, truly. Ophelia covered her mouth with both hands, unable to hide her surprise. Rebert? The Crown Prince's strategist? Rebert? He's a young scholar, raised with the support of Floor. He possesses extraordinary abilities in many fields, such as military strategy and financial management. He's a crucial figure who helps Callian solidify his position in the Empire. I never thought the character who'll be mentioned later in the original story would appear before me so soon. Ophelia couldn't help but feel admiration and awe that if Sylvester hadn't pulled me outside, I wouldn't have been able to meet him. It's so lucky, so fortunate. She thought that I never expected to meet the Duchess and Duke Regent here. The boy's face lit up as he exclaimed, You recognize me? Sylvester asked out of course. You're so famous. Moreover, there are recent rumors that you saved an orphan child and are even raising him. Because of that, the Vizin family's reputation has grown even stronger. The story has spread that far already? Yes. So, why are you here and counting like that? I just find studying very interesting. But if I don't want to starve, I have to work hard. Rebert delivered newspapers to each person, and whenever I have free time and I hear about this or that, I try to calculate it, and I find it very enjoyable. But sometimes, I also feel very envious of those who wear academy uniforms. I also want to go to school. The boy hugged the stack of newspapers, looking up at the children wearing uniforms. Is there any place with more books than a bookstore? If I'm given the opportunity, he held the stack of newspapers tightly. I'm confident I can do well. He walked forward and suddenly knelt before Sylvester and Ophelia. Rebert stood up, then knelt again resolutely, saying, "Please, Duke Regent and Madam, take me to the mansion." With the boy's determined gaze, Sylvester was taken aback. "And no matter what you teach me, I will definitely repay you beyond your imagination." "What is this?" Both Ophelia and Sylvester were surprised by Rebert's words. "The opportunity has come, husband. The boy has asked so earnestly," Ophelia said with a bright smile, "but it's difficult." Ophelia widened her eyes innocently. "Difficult? How?" Rebert beside them was also startled. The boy, Rebert, remained kneeling before them. "Tell you the biggest problem," Ophelia said, pointing at herself. "Doubt me?" she asked, bewildered. "Are you planning to turn the mansion into a temporary shelter?" An image of a kindergarten flashed through her mind, with Ophelia as the teacher and the people she brought back to the mansion transformed into animals. "Come one, come all. 100 people or 1,000 people. All are welcome." "But this child is truly very intelligent," she explained, trying to persuade Sylvester. Indeed, the conversation just now was quite interesting. But Rebert, kneeling at Sylvester's feet, had a serious expression. "Still not impressive enough." Sylvester's voice was cold, his gaze sharp. "That he's exceptional for his age, but to enter the mansion immediately, not yet." Rebert's face darkened. Was investing time and money in this child worth it? But Ophelia couldn't argue. It was true. What Rebert had shown was only potential, like a sparkling seed. "I know Rebert's abilities well, but it's difficult to prove them right now." Rebert's appearance was so sudden it blocked the path forward. "I'll stay here until you accept me," the boy said with a serious face. "Will I ever meet such important people again? This could be the first and last chance of my life. Although I can't show you everything here, I'm certain I'll be very useful." His two hands, resting on his kneeling legs, trembled uncontrollably. "Did I swear to God?" Sylvester stared intently at the boy's pursed lips. More and more people gathered to watch. Sweat began to trickle down Rebert's face. "What's with this child on his knees? What's going on?" "That's Duchess Raisin." People began to murmur, and the crowd grew larger and louder. Ophelia gasped, startled. Is she bullying a child now? Under the bright sunlight, Sylvester's handsome face was thoughtful. "The children you take an interest in are all so strange." Young Rebert was startled when a hand lifted him up. "Come on, lad," Sylvester said, holding the boy easily in his arms. "This time, I'll allow myself to be tricked. So prove your worth." Tears of happiness welled up in Rebert's eyes, his face overflowing with emotion. Yes. What's so special about this?" The crowd began to disperse. Ophelia, witnessing him lifting the boy, was utterly surprised. I think this is the first time I've seen Sylvester smile like that." His face held a gentle smile as he looked at the boy in his arms, now crying with joy. All right. I only like you because you're a child." Hearing this, Ophelia silently judged him. "Crazy bastard. Whatever. It's all resolved now anyway." Carriages moved through the grounds of the vast castle. Ophelia greeted Nude at your back. The sight of the three of them, Ophelia, Sylvester, and Rebert, with Rebert still perched on Sylvester's arm, made New sweat. "What's with that child?" "Well, I'm planning to raise him." New trembled, her mouth agape. Yes, I'll entrust him to you for a while." Rebert, with an innocent and bright face, responded, "Yes, sir. He'll be your charge from now on. Learn from him." "Yes, I understand." While Rebert and Sylvester exchanged cheerful words, New remained stunned, desperately wanting an explanation from Ophelia, who seemed to be deliberately avoiding her. "What in the world happened while I was gone?" Well, a lot happened. Come to think of it, New, are you finished with your task?" "Yes, it's done," New replied with a helpless expression. Sylvester pulled out a letter and said, "This is for Ophelia." "For me? What is it?" "What?" "This is the seal of Grand Duke Venin." "Yes, so this is an invitation from Grand Duke Venin." Ophelia's face flushed as she clutched the invitation. "How did you get such a precious invitation? You that happy about it?" "Well, all right then. Of course I'm happy. Grand Duke Venin is where the former Empress's letters are kept. I was originally planning to find a way to visit that family, but suddenly an invitation falls into my lap." Ophelia couldn't contain her excitement. "That I brought it," New said, bewildered, taking credit. Sylvester simply smiled. "You're my lucky god today." An image of Sylvester, radiating an aura of benevolence, filled Ophelia's mind. "I heard she's going there too." Ophelia looked puzzled. Sylvester smiled. Fleur William. "I can't believe we're meeting again so soon. This situation is incredibly awkward." Ophelia flopped onto the large bed. "Besides, this invitation wasn't addressed to me." Ophelia stared at the letter. Cadio. My husband is the best. This is Count Cadio's invitation. And yet, my husband stole someone else's invitation and brought it here. So touching. Tears streamed down Ophelia's face. Moreover, the reason he gave me the invitation was, give that girl a piece of your mind, then come back, meaning I'm allowed to go. That means he's also concerned about the previous incident between me and Flo. But the fact that Countess KDO is persistently inquiring about the invitation is also quite bothersome. I'm sure there will be ways to appease her later. Ophelia rubbed her forehead with a headache. Even if I don't appease her, she's already terrified of me anyway. If I want to avoid the original plot, I have to avoid her. But she hates me so much. Furthermore, to achieve my goal, I can't avoid running into her. Even though the nature of things is vastly different from the original plot, I'm still in a position of opposition to her. Ugh, I hate it so much. Ophelia rolled over, burying her face in the pillow. It's all right. It's not like there's no hope. Her hand gently gripped the sheets. That's right. Unlike the original plot, this isn't a confrontation between good and evil. Assuming there's no such thing as plot armor, this is a war. Whoever advances further and becomes stronger will win. Ophelia sat up deep in thought. Perhaps this war will be advantageous for me. I have to build my own position. I can do it. I've seen the path forward. The strongest cards I can use, the places where traps are set. I'll use everything. These are all weapons that only I know about. She threw open the window. Outside, the Milky Way glittered. I'm so sorry. Her expression was full of confidence and certainty. But I will block the things that would make you an angel. You will be the villainess. The morning was fresh. The maid, Irene, excitedly ran into the room, carrying a gift box wrapped in pink cloth. She happily searched for Ophelia. Madam, I'm back. Seeing her return with a gift box, Ophelia couldn't hide her joy and called out, Irene. Yes. She quickly walked towards Irene. Did you receive the item from Joseph? Irene hurriedly presented the gift box and replied, yes. Then she began to recount her experience picking up the package with great enthusiasm. You have no idea how scared I was. Those mercenaries looked so frightening, staring at me. I almost fainted, but I persevered to receive the item they delivered. Ophelia looked at her gratefully and reached out to pat Irene's head. She looked at Irene proudly and said, as expected of Irene, I was right to entrust this task to you. Seeing her mistress like this, Irene's heart bloomed with joy that it's all thanks to Madam's trust. Then, as if remembering something, she looked at the gift box and asked Ophelia, you said you would give this item to the Fenton family, right? Joseph kept complaining about how difficult it was to find. Ophelia didn't hide it and readily admitted, that's right. Then, with an unreadable expression, she said, we need this. But inwardly, she was already excited. I wonder how much the Grand Duke will like it. Pleased with her own idea, Ophelia burst out laughing, startling Irene. Only then did Irene notice Ophelia's dress and exclaimed, by the way, you look absolutely stunning today. This new dress suits you perfectly. Ophelia sounded slightly doubtful. Really? Irene replied without hesitation, yes. Then she didn't forget to tell me that this dress, apparently, everyone who's bought it says it's a Sime masterpiece design. Irene looked at Ophelia with sparkling, almost glowing eyes. Your eyes look amazing. Ophelia felt a little uneasy, so she turned away, thinking Sylvester has an incredible eye for fashion since he chose most of this. Ophelia then turned back to the mirror to admire herself. Standing before the mirror, she couldn't help but be stunned, thinking, even if my beauty was taken away, it wouldn't matter. I just wish this face was a little less intimidating. Like this is enough. It does have some good points, so I should make the most of them. She gently touched the mirror. Then she gave a smile that made Irene tremble. Supreme grimacing skill, instilling fear in everyone. Obey my command, yes. Ophelia, now composed, turned and smiled at the still trembling Irene. Thank you. Now, shall we go to Grand Duchy? Irene, though still frightened, stammered, why yes, madam. Ophelia walked to the door and opened it, only to be slightly surprised. She saw Sylvester, who seemed to have been waiting there for a while. She called out to him. Sylvester lifted his head and replied, then softly added, not bad. However, he couldn't resist teasing her. Could it be you put all your effort into getting ready to look beautiful just for me? Ophelia, hearing this, was speechless. Is this a new type of argument? She didn't dwell on it. I'll just give him a general compliment and move on. Thinking this, she flattered him a little that I don't know, but your fashion sense is excellent. I need to go out now, so please excuse me. Sylvester calmly replied, I'm coming too, startling Ophelia. He then brought up the invitation he had shown her earlier. I declined the Grand Duke's invitation before, but I must go today. He continued, his tone indifferent. It's quite bothersome, but I have to go. Ophelia didn't sound very enthusiastic. I don't want to go with you. She crossed her arms and looked at him disapprovingly. So, who did you dress up like that to impress? He asked, slightly surprised. But then, he couldn't resist retorting with a smug look. Let's see. He turned around, but didn't move. That wouldn't everyone be delighted if we both looked our best and arrived hand in hand. He extended his hand towards her with a tender gaze. Let's go. I have to look after my wife, after all. Ophelia, looking at his expression, was taken aback, but she instinctively took his hand. After arriving, both Ophelia and Iron were awestruck by the beautiful scenery. Wow, it's so beautiful. But Ophelia couldn't help but compare the weather between the north and the west. Just crossing the western border, and it's so warm. Completely different from the north, where the Raisin family lives. But the people in Raisin territory might find this heat stifling. While Sylvester was talking to the coachman, Ophelia continued to think about places to visit. I hear the beaches here are beautiful, but I have to stay in the mansion today, so it'll probably be difficult to go sightseeing. Well, engaging with the Duchess might be a bit challenging. I'll just get acquainted with the Grand Duke first, and then I'll receive a formal invitation to come here. Thinking this, she turned to Iron excitedly. Iron, are all the preparations complete? Iron assured her confidently, yes, madam. Don't worry. Then she hurriedly chased after the carriage driver. Coachman, wait. Sylvester saw Iron rush past him like that, and, a bit puzzled, asked Ophelia, what is Iron carrying? She proudly boasted, a gift I'm going to give to the Grand Duke. It's incredibly precious. But contrary to her smugness, he wasn't very happy. He said to her, if it were me, I wouldn't accept what you're giving. Hearing this, she asked, confused, Why not? Then he calmly recounted the nightmarish incident she had caused the Grand Duke's family. Didn't you trick them into eating salt instead of cake last time? He added, with a look of disbelief, have you already forgotten? They're very concerned about their health, so they were very distressed, thinking they might die. Upon hearing this, she froze on the spot. She couldn't believe it. Ophelia told the Grand Duchess that she was like a grain of rice that even a mouse wouldn't eat. And now this prank? That's just too awful. She felt utterly despairing and slumped down. But with a desire to make amends and put the past behind her, she declared resolutely, I went too far with the prank. Today, I absolutely must apologize to the Grand Duke and Duchess. Sylvester, exasperated, said a prank and stepped closer to her. Do you think they'll forgive you that easily? He asked. He pointed at her, reminding her that the Grand Duke wanted to execute you for that. She was a little intimidated. Yes, she admitted quietly. But he continued, if I hadn't intervened, you would have been dead. Finally, he concluded, you should be grateful for my efforts. But she, having caused so much trouble, now calmer, retorted, do you really have to take credit like this? He answered without hesitation, of course. She turned to leave, offering a perfunctory thanks. Yes, thank you. I'm so grateful I don't know what to do. He paid no attention to her attitude. You just need to know that. Annoyed, she turned back to glare at him. Why does he look so pleased with himself? Don't tell me he doesn't realize I'm being sarcastic. So dense. She continued calmly towards the banquet hall entrance. The ticket taker looked at her invitation and then confirmed, the invitation you presented is for Countess Cadio. As if anticipating this, she replied, I know. Then confidently she asked, do you know who I am? The attendant respectfully answered, of course. You are Duchess Ophelia Resin. She continued walking forward as she spoke. Countess Cadio said she wasn't feeling well, so I came in her place. She frowned and asked, is that a problem? The attendant stammered nervously, and no, of course not, Your Grace. Then, her usual cheerful demeanor returning, she ordered, go, and informed them quickly. She linked arms with Sylvester and said, tell them we've arrived. The Duke and Duchess, arm in arm, entered the Grand Duke's banquet. Everyone looked at them in surprise. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Duchess is here too. I heard she came using Countess Cadio's invitation. Ophelia thought to herself, it's true the invitation was stolen, but the culprit was Sylvester. If I keep getting angry and feeling wronged, I'll only shorten my lifespan. No, she exhaled to calm herself. The Duke looked at her with affection. You didn't hit them, did you? He whispered. Ophelia froze. Didn't I tell you multiple times that I don't hit people? She snapped. Only 4 times, he replied casually. She bristled. Then let me say it one more time for the 5th time, I don't hit people. I don't hit people anymore. I want to leave this place quickly. She felt an invisible pressure weighing on her mind. Countless eyes were directed at her. It made her feel utterly powerless. Suddenly, the Duke noticed a woman who seemed very tired, but he didn't pay much attention. He continued to tease her, if they talk anymore, you won't be able to stand it, right? Ophelia retorted irritably, this is the 6th time I've said this. I don't hit people anymore. However, her gaze turned icy. Just cursing them with black magic would do. She continued, you know how powerful my black magic is, right? The guests all seemed startled. I think I might accidentally use black magic, because sometimes I can't control it, Ophelia said dramatically. The Grand Duke will only be here briefly. We could just go straight to the drawing room. But Ophelia thought, even though he's the host, he doesn't seem to want to participate at all. Speaking of the Grand Duke, he had a significant health concern. While on the battlefield in his youth, he contracted an infectious disease from the West. So, After that near-death experience, he became obsessed with his health. It's rather ironic, but thanks to his reputation and position as Grand Duke, no one dares to underestimate him, Ophelia thought. Another interesting thing is that even though he's the Grand Duke, he only allows one person near him, Sinister Raisin. Arriving at the Grand Duke's room, Sylvester knocked and called out, "Grand Duke, it's me. I'm coming in." From behind the door, a man who looked serious, but was actually quite humorous, opened the door with a warm welcome. "Oh my, you've arrived." "Sylvester," he exclaimed. Sylvester inquired respectfully, "It's been a while. How have you been?" "Of course, I'm always the same." "Well, no, recently a servant caught a cold, so I've been confined to my room for fear of catching it. Leaving the bed is dangerous these days. But I heard you also had a cold. How are you now?" "As you can see, I'm perfectly healthy." "You needn't worry," Sylvester replied with a forced smile. However, the Grand Duke was delighted. "Oh, that's wonderful. But is the Duchess with you as well?" His eyes suddenly turned sharp, looking towards Ophelia. Ophelia thought, just a glance, and I can tell he hates me. She decided to feign ignorance and greeted him warmly. "It's been a while, Your Highness. How have you been?" The Grand Duke's face darkened. Ophelia panicked. It backfired. "I thought only the Duke was coming," he said, looking at Sylvester expectantly. Sylvester replied, "I thought so too, but my wife has something she wants to say to you." Ophelia smiled and said, "That's right, Your Highness." The Grand Duke said, "Could it be that you're planning to give me a cake made of salt crystals?" She froze. The Grand Duke continued, "If you're still trying to drive me away like last time, even if the Duke asks me to, I won't let you get away with it." Ophelia thought, even though he's old, a hero is still a hero. His spirit is truly formidable. The scene shifted to the Grand Duke's library. Irene exclaimed, "Wow, it's truly different being the founding family. This library is so luxurious." She suddenly asked, "Madam, what book are you looking for here?" Ophelia replied, "I'm just looking for one book." She described the book she was searching for. It's called Overview of Curses. As the title suggests, this book summarizes curses, a type of black magic. But the Grand Duke Finnan's family is renowned for their healing abilities and their utter disdain for black magic. So why is this terrifying book here? It must be because the former Empress Margaret gave this book to the Grand Duke and hid the letter inside. Since the Empress herself gifted the book, they couldn't just throw it away. And they were probably too afraid to touch it in case it was cursed, so they likely stashed it away somewhere. The Grand Duke did give me permission to take any book I wanted from this precious library. It's a good thing he still has some goodwill towards me. Ophelia continued to think. Although it would be best to reconcile with the Duchess, she'd have to think about that later. The first letter was hidden behind a portrait, and the next one was hidden inside a cursed book. It's like she didn't want anyone to find these letters. She hid them too well. I'm sure Kalian's affection for me will increase if I bring him this. This is like playing a game. If I give him something he likes, his Halgan duo will go up. She suddenly pictured a game screen in her mind. The Crown Prince said, "You think I like you if you give me this, but I will treasure it regardless." Suddenly, the imagined game screen flashed a warning, showing the Crown Prince holding a weapon and a candle with a frightening expression. Ophelia looked around in a daze, then opened the book and began to read. A line of text appeared before her eyes. Lamp magic. This is an incantation to borrow the power of demons. There are two ways to activate it. The first is to make a pact with a demonic being. The second is to offer a sacrifice to obtain power. The sacrifice is simpler than you can imagine. It is the user's emotions. Reading this, a spark appeared in Ophelia's eyes. The user's emotions? The strong emotions that humans feel are the source of this magic, and they're sacrificed, becoming a delicious meal for the demons. The demon lives by consuming human emotions in this way. She was surprised and horrified. This wasn't in the original plot. She continued reading. Emotions are a very strange principle. How frightening. Lost in thought, she pondered the implications. The first time Ophelia used black magic was when her father died, and she was consumed by endless grief. Could it be that she used her emotions, her sadness, as a sacrifice to wield that power? A grief so intense that it could summon a demon. Ophelia's mood darkened. I was so focused on reading this book. It's not that I've completely lost my emotions, but I can use this power by offering my emotions at that very moment. So, I also have to feel intense emotions to use black magic. She looked at her hands. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "This is so frustrating. Sylvester is an idiot." She thought, "Do I need to yell some more? Let's yell." The black dragon on my right hand is incredibly angry. The servant, mid-spray with a bottle of polish, froze, staring at her strange behavior. He cried out, "Madam, what are you doing?" Ophelia felt embarrassed.